All right, it's 6:34. We're going to begin planning board meeting on Thursday, February 7th. Planning board meetings are broadcast live and digitally recorded. You can see yourself on the screen there, and it can be also broadcast at a later date. We've got a really a pretty busy agenda, but many of these items can be dealt with very quickly. We have some visitors. Sir, would you introduce yourself, please?
My name is Troy Ginther, and I'm with Natural Stonewall Solutions.
Okay, and you're here on the rock wall concern.
Yeah, we're on the 95 Williamsville Road.
And you folks?
We're at 96 Williamsville Road. We had
Oh.
originally approached the town.
You're Mr. Weichel?
Yeah, and
Oh,
I'm
and-
Mrs. Weichel.
Oh, hello. Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't recognize you from a couple
That's
times
okay.
ago.
Yeah.
Well, welcome. Welcome, Francois.
Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed your planning board vacation.
It was not a vacation.
You had time away from us. Alrighty. Call to order. We've got more than a quorum, and so we can proceed. Christina, you want to explain how this old business list came about, just so that people know what you did and generated it, and how we're going to clean up our books, so to speak?
Okay, a couple meetings ago, we discussed the subject of putting old business on the agenda so that we could make sure we were still on top of anything we had addressed. So what I did was I went through the last 5 or 6 meetings and basically wrote down anything that we had touched on but perhaps hadn't expressed that it was closed. You know, we'd brought it up as the possibility of something we might move forward with, but because it had never been sort of, this is no longer something we're addressing, I wanted to make sure it got on the agenda under old business so that the public would know what we're still working on and what maybe has been pushed off to another board or someone else. Or we're still need to work on.
Or, yeah, in some
Yeah.
cases, we're still pecking at it.
Right,
Right.
so that's why it's sort of long today.
All right. No, I
Yeah.
appreciate it because this really helps so we don't miss anything.
It's kind of a to-do list.
Yeah.
You know? So why don't we ask our visitor our guest to approach the table. Maybe you can explain the latest on your concern. This is, I think it's 93 Williamsville Road, or is it 95?
It's actually 95.
So it's here
95?
95.
It is 95. I checked with the
Okay.
GIS map.
91 is the solar closer to town, with a
Right.
fence right next to the road.
Mhm.
Then there's a house lot or a house on a property, and then there's another driveway entrance to a solar system farther down the road, and that, I think, has the address of 95. So,
And this one's in between, correct?
yeah,
I think this one's definitely in between. There's 2 solar farms on both sides, so I think it's either 93 and 97, or, I mean, 95
Yeah,
is in the middle.
It's right next to the old house.
there's an old farmhouse
Correct.
on
The
it.
old farmhouse and
But
the
there's a-
barn
there's
in
a-
the back.
I think there's solar fields on both sides.
Correct.
That's correct.
So, or somebody who we know through the company, they owns the solar farms, and I think they're proposing to do another one on 95.
In the back,
In the
so to
back.
speak, yeah.
And he said, we're gonna be cleaning the place out. He knows I did stone walls. He said, there's some stone walls here. Before they get leveled and turned into fields, if you wanna use the stone, please come take it.
Oh, I see, you're the person who
Yeah.
actually
So
removed
we
the stone.
We took the stone. So, and then got notified. I thought this was all, unfortunately, I got kinda put in a bad spot here, as
Mhm.
you can see. It's his property, and he said, have at it, cause that's what's gonna happen at this site. So we took the walls, we took some stone, we took about 10 containers, you know, those roll-off containers
Mm-hmm.
on trucks. So those were taken and used we built stone walls, so
There's a lot of different containers, what are they, 10 yard, 20 yard,
these are 15, I believe.
15 yard?
About
4 feet
4 feet
tall
high.
and 8 by,
20 feet long, 6,
Okay.
7 feet wide, whatever.
15 yard
Your most
container.
standard trash looking kind of roll off. That's how they move stone, cause it's kinda rough.
Now you're saying the owner of the property told you to come take them. Who was the individual that told you that?
That's Brett Chapman.
Okay.
He's the owner of solar, he owns a solar company.
Mm-hmm.
Brett
Brett,
Chapman,
and he's the gentleman who asked me to be here tonight. I think that's how this all,
Yes.
but he elected not to come.
he told me to come.
Okay.
I didn't know if there's any other, I was asked to come, so I came.
Yeah, well, thank you, we appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
So, do we wanna go first? We could read what we asked him to do as, we had a little work plan,
Right.
and we sent him a letter with that work plan in
I
it
believe you received, I'm not sure if you received, but you were copied on a later email.
for the purpose of the public, knowing what
Right.
the heck's going on.
Yep.
I have a question for him.
Oh, please.
So these walls that were removed, unless there's two cases and I'm confused. There were walls along the street and then there
Yeah.
were walls along the back, or the side.
There's one on the side, yes.
Okay, and was that a dividing wall or was it just a wall where the land had been, we have interior walls that wind up, like I have a wall in my backyard and I own both sides of it. Was it
I think
the
it,
dividing lane?
I think it definitely runs along
The border.
there's one in the front, here's,
You have a plan,
yeah.
a property plan?
Yeah, it's right here. This is 95. So, no maps show the stonework, but that's the plan. And I highlighted the road and the one on the left.
All right.
It's a rectangular lot. So that's, I think, I believe that's what's in, based off your email, that's what's in concern. Is the front here, I believe, we took some stones off the top of this wall, so the walls are still there. They're pretty big stones that are there, so we only took what we could lift,
Do you
so-
own the house that's on this lot?
No, Brett does.
This is showing a proposed solar project that isn't there yet, right?
Correct. I think he bought the land and they've already I've seen some pretty extensive plans for the solar field. I believe it's all approved. He wouldn't
Well,
have called us to have us in there. if
Let's
it
go
wasn't.
back to the beginning. Could you read the letter we sent him that was the work plan or the request?
This is the one to Mr. Chapman. Mr. Chapman, the board met on January 2nd, 2019 to discuss the removal of rocks from 95 Williamsville Road. During that meeting, the board decided that the rocks in question, the front stone wall rocks being from a wall along a scenic road, and the side stone wall rocks being from walls demarcating boundary lines, would need to be restored. The board requests your attendance at their next meeting, February 6th, at which there will be discussion about the complete restoration of those walls. It is requested that prior to that meeting, you fill out a remedial scenic road application for the rocks removed. It is requested that you come with information regarding ownership of the plots of land adjacent to the properties where the rocks were removed. The board is also requesting that a professionally prepared engineering plan be provided prior to restoration. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to respond, and your query will be forwarded to the board. Please respond as to whether or not you will be able to attend the February 6th meeting. Thank you.
Okay, so we are looking for the ownership of the adjacent properties so that we know their boundaries. And I thought we also asked for a check for our engineer to go out and,
That was sent later, when we actually got the quote from Bill Murray. I sent that, we have word from Bill Murray at Places Associates, who's reviewed the project and will require $2,400. This money will involve Mr. Murray's interaction with before, during, and after the project is complete to ensure compliance.
now that's a max probably, and whatever we don't spend, we get back, of course.
Okay.
He would go out, and if I recall correctly, he would look at the plans that are presenting, or the permit application, or whatever we have,
Yeah.
looks at the documents, then look at the site and see if they match up, and come back and report to us that, yeah, it's a solid plan, we should do this, or,
Okay.
no, there's deficiencies in some way.
Okay.
He's our engineering representative.
Okay.
And we have the right to go down and walk on the property and look at what's
Okay.
going on as well. Sometimes we do it with him,
Okay.
'cause he's pretty knowledgeable. This is a good start, but to address Alice's question, we really need to confirm whether the wall was taken from a interior line or a line that is shared by one property owner and another property owner. It's a boundary line.
Okay.
That's the key question that I think Alice was asking you.
Okay.
This
Can I
plan,
speak? I might be able to help.
please,
Hi, it's
you're
Jill.
welcome to come to the table. if you
Yeah,
You
um,
come on, sure.
Because sometimes the microphones don't pick up. And
Okay. That the wall that ran as you're facing,
That's this picture right here.
Here's this,
I got the
here's his
fronts.
little plan.
Oh, he's got the same picture right there.
Mhm.
yeah, you can't really see, I sent
It's right here.
her, is that it? Yeah, you can see the marker for the property line right on that picture.
Well, what marker
And-
is that?
That's the marker that they put in when they bought the property.
I might slide that little paper
So I
back.
believe, let's see, it's this,
There's the road.
yeah, it's the
Okay.
property line marker.
see.
Well,
that-
It's got a red, you can pass it
Nice.
around maybe,
Yeah.
Bill.
Can you see
Just
it?
you'll have to move your
It
finger around
has-
when you get it,
Yeah,
otherwise
sure.
it's gonna show.
yeah, I don't doubt you, but sitting here, I can't confirm you.
Oh, yeah, no, and the
Um,
that rock wall was about 6 feet wide.
We
and
understand
ran-
that.
Oh,
Yep,
okay.
because your husband was in here
Oh,
2
I'm
weeks
sorry.
ago, and, no, don't be
Okay.
sorry, it was
Yeah.
fine. We had a
Yeah.
great conversation, I think.
Yeah.
You wanna see it, Tom?
There is a
Sorry.
little square thing here on your drawing, and then there is another boundary line over here. And it makes all the world of difference as to whether these rocks are on this line or on this line. And that's what Bill will have to determine.
Okay.
Do you know what that flag is?
That could be anything.
It's a shame the owner's not here.
Yeah, when they,
it would
when the
help.
property sold in July, they came out and they put those markers. It was
Yes.
measured and marked, so I assume those were property lines, but you're right, I don't know for certain that they are.
Yeah, nor do we. And
Yeah.
that's what our engineer will go out and find.
Yeah.
He'll look for the, we have a drawing, although,
It looks like it should be easy, cause they do say that there's a bound, so I would assume if it's anywhere near that bound, it's close,
It is
it's in that
close.
drawing.
Probably the
I shrunk it down. It does say, I'm sure it probably is, but it says WCH bound found. So I'm sure there's definitely something right there that I would assume is whatever on.
yep, we're all certain there's something there.
Yeah. But it should be,
Uh,
you would assume usually engineering rates differ when they have to go for long
Yeah.
distances to find.
We
those.
have drawings of the adjacent properties, because they both have solars on them,
Mhm.
and we have those plans. We can, if you would please, bring those plans up to the surface somehow and
Mhm.
provide them to Bill when he does his little inspection.
Yes.
But the question is are the rocks, well, there's two sets of rocks, as you indicated. There's one along the road,
Mhm.
which is governed by the Scenic Roads law.
Mhm.
And then there's one that goes perpendicular to the road, and we have to determine who owns the land on both sides of that rock wall.
Okay.
And then, physically review it.
Go from there.
Yeah, what else have you got besides that plan?
There's some other VHB file, there's not a lot.
I mean, with you tonight.
With me tonight, I had the photos of the front and the planning and the application for the scenic road that you asked for,
Okay,
and some photos. I don't know what else I'm supposed to.
Can I ask another question here? So, Brad, Mr. Chapman bought this house.
He did.
Okay, so who owns the solar field in the back?
That's his, Brett,
that doesn't exist.
No,
There's
it's,
one on either
yeah.
side.
Okay, who owns the one on this
I
side?
think Brett.
He owns both of them?
He owns a,
I'm pretty sure he owns.
I believe, but don't quote me, that
Go
he
ahead.
owns a 25% stake. That's what he said at the Conservation Commission.
okay,
He owns a
But-
25% stake in the solar farm to the right, but not the land.
That is towards Williamsville.
Yes. So if you're
Yes.
facing the
Up the hill?
house, if you're
No, down the hill.
facing the
Oh, okay.
house down the hill, he has a 25% interest in that solar
Right.
farm.
But
The
not the
solar
land.
farm on the left, the two young men
It's
bought
owned,
it.
it's owned by,
It just recently sold.
yeah, we have their ownership.
They were at the Conservation Commission meeting
just changed ownership.
as well.
Yes,
And
Um,
they don't know, at least they said in that meeting, they don't know this gentleman.
did you happen to get our letter?
I was forwarded, I got the email that was sent to Brett was,
Well, the letter that was read tonight, did you happen to get that?
Yeah, that was forwarded to me from
Alright.
Brett.
What we were looking
recently.
for was ownership of the adjacent properties, so
Okay.
that we understood who owns what, and that's an important question.
Yeah, no, okay.
I guess we'll resolve that by looking at our own files. We were hoping you'd come in with some kind of a little more robust plan. Let's do that. Do you have a check for Bill Murray for our engineer to go and look at things?
I
Thank you.
have no, I don't, but I think I have a blank check in my truck. So I could write one, I could write a check tonight,
Well, would you be willing to? I'm not trying to,
if that's what the town needs.
that's what we'd like to do. That was,
So is that just a retainer for him? That's your guy you use?
well, what it is a revolving account. We put money in, and then he does work,
Okay,
and then upon our approval, we pay him, and it comes out of your account, and whatever's left over, we give back to you after the study is done.
okay,
We outlined the plan's steps, or the steps of the plan, and requested, I think, $2,400.
Yes.
okay.
And,
What's,
that would let
okay.
him, that would allow, I disinvited him tonight, because without a check, we can't pay him to even attend this meeting.
Okay.
So, upon receipt of the check, and we get it into an account, and we can ask him to go down and scope this out with our drawings from other solar systems, and, I don't know, I think we can look up deeds on the
Assessors. map, yeah.
assessors, or even the registry of deeds.
Yes.
So we'll do that work, because it isn't here on the table. I'm gonna stop and ask, go around the table, what should we be doing here?
I think it's unfortunate Mr. Chapman or one of his representatives aren't here, so we could get a little more information.
Yeah.
I don't think we can move any further forward at this, cause we're limited on information on this.
so I mean, it's,
I disagree. If he gives us a check, I'm prepared to release Bill to go down and look.
Okay.
At least, he had like a 5-step program. The first one is
Right.
inspect the thing.
Right.
What happened? And, I think he can do that much.
Yeah,
Okay.
to get it started.
Sounds good.
I think, with this, I don't know what you've put in your, application, the form but what needs to be attached to that is a description of the work you plan to do, which maybe you can't do till you have our
yeah,
expert.
Well, it's
Um,
a chicken and an egg.
Right,
You guys go first.
right, so that's an incomplete application, but it's a step in the right direction.
yeah, okay,
But we can't consider it complete. And our, scenic road, which it derives from the Massachusetts statute, and then
Okay.
we have a bylaw as well.
okay,
And it does require, if we're gonna have a hearing on modification, which should have, we're the cart before the horse here problem, but some publication and some notice to abutters.
okay.
So,
But
we need to,
that's a little later, I think. We can't do that now.
no, we
don't
can't do
have
that today
anything in
anyway,
front.
but I'm just telling him it needs to be,
Part of the program.
part of the program is it needs to be advertised, and I don't know whether it has abutters.
Yeah, there's an
I think
abutters list.
abutters,
Yeah,
abutters
yeah,
list
you'd have
and
to.
notice, two
We'll probably end up
publications.
taking it out of the 2,400. It'll be, we have to publish it for 2
Yep.
days in the Gardner News. We also have to get a, confirmed abutters list, and we have to, there's a
Return.
payment to the assessor's office for a confirmed abutters list. It's only, I believe, $10, but it's something that needs to be done to ensure that everyone who's an abutter to the property is
And then the
notified.
mailing to the owners.
Yes, and then the mailing to the owner of the abutters, yes.
Now, who's responsible for getting the abutters list together?
Typically,
per-
it is
the applicant.
The applicant. They have to go by the assessor's office and do that.
And check it out, and you can check with the assessors, cause there's a certain distance within the property. It's usually just the borders, but
Right.
depends on how wide or narrow the lots are around it.
Can also be across the street.
Right, and across the street,
Right.
so,
And you guys live across, you guys,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm totally unfamiliar with the area, but I think, are you the only people across the street for a while? Is there?
We're directly across, and then there's Scott, who's across from the solar farm that's near the front of the road, and
Down the way.
Kevin and Kristen are across from the solar farm that's to the
He
right.
says this will have a.
So is this like a 300-foot thing or a 500-foot thing?
I believe it's within 100 feet, but as I said, if you take it to the assessor's office, she'll be able to print that out, like, immediately and then hand
Okay.
you it. You hand it to me, and then I end up sending out the mailings of the
Okay.
notification of
Oh.
public hearing. But we can't do a public hearing until we know what we're actually notifying in the,
Right, it had to be a completed application plus the abutters list.
right.
So what do I,
Well, it's a plan. We're looking
Yeah.
for what this
I
is
mean,
gonna
it's-
look
it's-
like when it's all done.
And what we're gonna do, we gotta have the plan first.
what it's gonna look like, okay.
No, I mean, not an artist's conception, but
I
you're
mean,
gonna go from here to here,
I'm
and
just trying
How
to,
many feet? and
something
how many-
dimensioned.
okay,
The height
Okay.
and.
All right, here's Bill Murray's proposal to us to deal with this. A site visit to look at as is today. A meeting with the planning board and the landowner to review and approve restoration plans. And I believe our letter said something like a engineered plan. Didn't it, Alice? I
I
remember
think it
you.
did.
It's not a hand sketch, it's a dimensioned plan showing ownerships and
A
who owns
professionally
what.
prepared engineering plan
Yes.
to be provided prior to restoration.
Then,
which we have.
our engineer would watch the work in progress. He'd provide a inspection of the completed work, and then he'd give us a little report, saying the plan was accomplished or whatever happened. And, that's the 5-step program.
Okay,
And, he asked for a 6th step, because one always pops up. So it was 6 times $400, $2,400.
okay,
If you don't want to dig into the ownership and get the plans for the other adjacent properties, we will, but there's an administrative fee I think we can charge. It's not overwhelming, but we'll tack that on.
okay.
And,
Yeah, no, I honestly, I thought that there was some other stuff going on between you and Brett,
Oh.
no,
Sorry.
we haven't, never met the gentleman.
Okay. Okay,
But then, in addition to that, if you could slide your plan back over. Thank you. I remember that the solar field closer to town, I'm gonna call it 91, it used to be called Seaboard. I don't know, I can't remember the name of the guy who owns it now, but it's the NOAA project.
Noah
The
Seagull.
south
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
so again, is that, okay,
It's
Is it- if
back
you're looking at the
towards
property, is
town.
that the
It's
left?
the uphill, yeah, it's the left.
uphill, okay. Towards town is uphill, okay.
Yes.
Okay,
The plot of land is pretty big, and they built the solar system up on what I will call the high ground, the uphill side of that.
okay,
And I believe there's wetlands right along this property line. And, I can't tell by this drawing, but I think you need to show them. You, I believe, have them shown, or we have them shown on that plot plan. And you may have them shown on the thing that you put before, the plans that you put before the Conservation Commission, just here recently. You didn't, Mr. Chapman did,
oh, okay,
in preparation for the solar system.
oh, okay,
And,
okay,
we're gonna, if you can't, we will resurrect those plans as well, cause there's a question of whether you were stepping on the toes of the wetland or not. That's not our jurisdiction.
yeah, okay,
That's the
Conservation.
Conservation Commission. But Bill Murray, doesn't confine his eyeballs. When he's down there, he's looking at wetlands and rocks and everything. So he'll come back to us probably and determine whether,
Okay.
that was something that we should go to the Conservation Commission with.
okay.
I can't think of anything else. Can anybody?
No.
Okay. Then,
So then is the Scenic Road, in the meeting we're in, responsible for the approval of the stuff on the street then? Or is,
Yes.
and then are you, okay,
Scenic Road
Makes sense
governs
that, like,
the
you own-
parallel to the road.
so you own this little portion? Is this gonna be,
We,
like,
you
are you gonna
circled
wanna
two-
see, like, so I guess my overall thing is I'm happy to do whatever, I kinda got thrown in the middle of this whole
I
thing.
understand. We're trying
And
to
I'm
help.
happy to do whatever people need to do. So like, this is a photo of the wall from Google Maps from like 17, from, I don't know, way before we did anything. Okay, I'm just trying to figure out what we're gonna do here. And then this is what it looks like now. So I mean, it's still there. And do we just kinda top it off,
Did you
like,
see?
and is that what's gonna happen
Well-
on the side, and then, and where do you guys, where's the ownership of your review?
This is, can I do it before and after? This is which?
This is
This is
after.
the before.
Okay.
This is after, yeah, there you go, after.
And maybe we could keep,
Well,
Yeah, I mean, I brought it
in
to you
all
guys, so-
fairness,
Yeah,
after is what exists down there today that Bill Murray will look at.
correct.
yeah, but it may help Bill to see the,
I mean, whatever, anything you can give him, like, whatever, it makes his life easy.
Just show them the other side, open
Oh,
that front,
really?
there's nothing on that side.
are these shot the same direction? Okay, so
This is
this-
like the Google Map driver, and this is, I went to the site and I just stood on the side of the road. So it's
And
like
the
it's about-
sidewall is this one?
And then this left side, so towards town is uphill,
Yeah.
and this is the wall they're
There's
talking
no
about, that goes through the
substitute
woods.
for going and looking at the real thing.
Right. Yeah, I've seen it.
Okay.
Now,
I will,
We can deal with your application, I think. Is that
It's
true?
incomplete, because we don't know
Oh.
what he's going to do to restore
and
that.
I don't know what I'm gonna do until someone tells us.
Well,
we can put the-
you can't put all the burden back on us. You actually went down and picked up rocks and put them in a container and hauled them off. You must have some understanding of what you did and what it looked like before you picked it up.
Okay,
And so the idea is that you bring it back to that condition,
okay,
not rock to rock or position by position, but in concept.
okay,
We have two jurisdictions here. I think we have the Scenic Road jurisdiction, which takes care of that red circle
Yeah.
number one,
okay,
and that's clearly a planning board issue.
okay,
The other red line, a red circle, has to be determined whether it's a interior wall, meaning Mr. Chapman owns both sides of it,
okay,
in which case I think he can pick it up. Or is it a boundary wall where Mr. Chapman owns one side and someone else owns the other side?
I think you said seaboard?
Seaboard
it's
Solar,
Seaboard.
which is now
Seaboard.
something else.
Right.
Okay,
But the point is, it's two ownerships.
okay,
And when it's two ownerships, it's not appropriate to pick them up. You can't take them.
okay,
And that is a state law.
okay,
And we're trying to exercise a request.
okay,
That's different than enforcing a law. I'm not sure we have the authority to enforce the law,
okay,
but we're asking that it be complied with. If it isn't complied with, then we have to go to someone who does enforce it. I don't know, call the police. I don't know what we do, but
okay.
we would expect the old rule, cooperate or litigate.
Yeah.
We hope it's all cooperative.
Yeah, no, I guess we got thrown in this mix because all these solar guys are
It's unfortunate you got put in. that
okay
position.
with it. We're okay with taking everything. Cause it's part of a plan to get removed anyway. So when we got that letter, I was surprised. Cause I thought, Seaboard and Chapman, all these guys, all these solar guys,
I don't
it's
think,
getting removed.
Alice, we'll have to review it in the future, but I don't remember it saying you can remove it if everybody likes it.
It's common ownership, if it's a
It's-
border wall.
It's common ownership for the present owners as well as future owners.
Okay.
And,
Yeah, cause this is the first time I've asked to restore an old farm, so I'm just nervous of like, okay, we'll try to make everybody happy here. I just don't know
well,
what we gotta do here. I know there's a couple stuff was moved around and the majority of stuff is still there because it was too big. Okay, I'm just trying to get an understanding because I know it's gonna be asked on us.
Did you see the wall before the workers
Yeah,
started
I was there.
working?
I was there.
Then you know what we're trying to do. If you have a visual image of that, we're trying to get that back to the way it was when you showed up with your dumpster.
Okay.
And it's really the responsibility is really the landowners. So, I mean, the landowner had no right to give you the permission to remove it.
Okay.
And he owns it, right? So,
Yeah,
Okay. I will go to the truck and it's to, what's his name? Bill, is it,
no,
Right.
it's,
what's his, so,
Town of Hubbardston, and we will board the
oh,
check.
I get a check to you and you'll handle it?
Yeah.
Okay, so Town of Hubbardston
Mm-hmm,
for 2,400.
yes.
Give me 5 minutes, I parked outside.
No problem at all. You can mail it to us if you have to.
No, it's, I got a fold-up check in the wall, so if you got a couple wrinkles in it, it's no big deal, right?
Can't see anything
It's
tonight.
it's the emergency check though, so hopefully I don't run out of gas on the way home.
Why don't you just mail it to us?
I'll go get it now, cause I don't wanna forget, and then what?
Should we ask him return in a month with a report?
What's the next,
Yeah, if you could,
when do
if
you
you
guys
could
meet?
mail us a plan, we don't have to have a meeting to
Yeah,
receive
no.
a plan.
Okay,
If you could mail us your restoration plan like we described in the letter, an engineered plan with, dimensions and ownership of the adjacent lands and where the walls were and that kind of stuff. We can get that to Bill and he can start work. We don't have to wait a whole month.
so,
No, but we do have to have an application finished and advertised. So I'm thinking a report back in a month and probably the following month would be, but maybe it can all.
cause I can have my engineer put the official marks on this. So I guess I'm lost on what Bill's doing. Is he just literally coming out and looking at is he just doing $400 site visits?
You're doing a plan.
Well,
and
my
he-
engineer would do a plan.
Well, you, the party,
Okay.
the applicant is doing a plan.
So we're having 2 engineers look at this now? Cause why can't I just have my engineer do a plan and give it to you?
That's what I want.
Okay,
But we ask our engineer, this
Okay.
fellow named Bill Murray.
Yeah.
Take that plan, walk down to the job site, or
Okay.
to the property, and, view the plan with respect to the property, and does it all make sense and look right? And then he comes back and he says something. He says, well, it doesn't look right, or it does look right.
Okay,
Release
so
them to do the work.
okay, so he's
Now,
not
you're
putting
not
in any
supposed-
stakes.
No.
No,
No,
no.
no.
Well, okay,
He's an observer, he's eyeballs.
so he's an inspection guy,
He's,
okay,
he protects the town.
I get it. I
And-
didn't know what he was
and
gonna
I'm
do.
not
Yeah.
sure that we can even begin the restoration, because I think you're operating without any permits at all. Has the Conservation Commission given you?
No, like I said,
The green light?
I got an email the other day that said, come to a meeting.
Okay.
So no,
I think the status is that you really shouldn't be doing any work on the property, but I'm not sure.
we stopped the second, there's a, Brett must've been notified, cause he said, please stop work, there's an issue with the town, and we left. So,
Well, you've been a little bit bagged, and we appreciate that. But
so,
you can either mail the check in,
Yeah.
but we're looking for a plan and a check. And then we can begin work to help bring about this restoration.
I'll try to find out what else is, okay,
Is that okay, Al?
And the plan has to have a description of the work you're gonna do.
restore the walls, I guess.
What is it gonna take to put it back to what it was?
Well,
Yeah.
not a
I mean,
word
that's a
description,
Just
but,
a description.
how long is it? How wide is it? Where is it?
How high?
How high is it?
Okay,
'Ten similar rock
15-yard
material.
containers is a lot of stone.
yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm mildly concerned with.
That's
Okay.
the whole issue. Jurisdiction and what it's gonna look like when you're all done.
Okay. I'll obviously get a hold of Brett, cause there's some stuff out of my hands, okay,
And then if I can get the application prior to our next meeting, I can post it so that it can be a public meeting. But we would need to have it at least.
I mean, nothing's gonna happen, it's the middle of the winter, no work is gonna happen for 2
No,
months.
but we're a bureaucracy, we have to go through
Yeah,
the steps to
I know.
allow you to work in the spring.
Right, we
Okay.
need to have a public hearing before the scenic road application can even be approved.
okay. Do you wanna keep these? These are just stock photos. I brought an iPad to show photos, I know how many people we're gonna be here. Do you wanna give that to your
Sure.
guy? Wanna give that to Bill?
Sure.
And this is okay.
Well, thank you.
Thank you
Okay.
very much.
All right.
Sorry you got put
Did
in
you
the middle.
sign in, by the way?
I did,
And do we have the contact information?
you do.
I do.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much for coming in.
No problem.
Thank you.
Thank you, good night.
All right. Thanks for coming. Well, first item of old business takes a half an hour, we're gonna have a long night. Let's do 91 Williamsville Road, site approval discussion. We're in possession of a complaint about that one. It was mostly the visuals. I've contacted Noah. Noah
Siegel.
Siegel.
And I've written a follow-up asking what the status is on the request for the funds.
All right, and I also sent an email to him after a conversation, or no, he sent us an email saying, here's your annual report, which is something that the solar systems need to provide us. And after he did that, I wrote back and said, you know, what about the complaint and the
This is the report if
inspection?
anyone wanted to see it.
Ah, yes. I think we all got that by email?
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah, I've seen it.
it's not in your packet. It was delivered by email. You didn't feel it was something that people,
So
I guess
we're,
I did see it. Let me take a quick look.
we're awaiting a remedial action plan and a check from Noah Siegel's company.
right, they're looking for a certificate of completion, and we told them we needed to have our own person go out for site compliance.
And how he's gonna deal with the complaint. And, we ought, well, of course, we thank him for his annual report. And I'm not sure what we, as a board, do with the annual reports. But one starting point is to, ask our town assessor
Mhm.
what we do with such annual reports and see what she can do to help us. Would you ask the town assessor if you see her? She
Mhm.
sits right near you. And
Yep.
if you want me to come over and join that discussion, I'd be
The
glad
Board of
to.
Selectmen was part of that project also, when we did the, pilot programs for these. So I don't know who
Yeah.
oversees that. I thought it was the planning board.
We oversee the, special permit that was issued for them.
Mm-hmm.
The selectmen enter into the pilot agreement,
With the assessor.
and the pilot agreement is a payment in lieu of taxes,
Correct.
which of course is, in an everyday sense, managed, I think, by the assessor. The assessors.
Well, what happens is when you first buy the equipment, install it is worth this much, and over time, it loses value. So what they do when they do a pilot program, they come up and say, look, we're planning on this 20-year period, this project's gonna generate this much money, and it's worth this much money, so this is what we're gonna tax you on it. So every year for 20 years, we get the same amount of money from them. And
Oh.
that's what the pilot program basically says, and it says they're gonna do the maintenance and it's all this. But I don't recall who's in charge of the project, who actually makes sure they do what they're supposed to do.
Monitors it.
Yeah, I
It
don't
is a,
write
it
it.
Is
is
that
a,
this True Green?
yes, True Green.
Mhm.
That's
Okay,
them.
on that
Is
side.
that the new one, or is that the new ownership?
That's the 91.
True Green Capital
Yeah.
Management. Cause wasn't there an issue that
Wasn't this
that they
the
had a change of ownership or something?
Yeah, that's the
Right,
Noah
we were
Siegel,
waiting for
and it's
that.
now True Green. It was Seaboard.
No, the complaint is there's nothing covering the privacy, is that the? was
It's a
that the complaint?
visual thing.
It's a
Yeah, 'cause
visual.
didn't they take it down, or?
I'm not sure. I think, again, what we're going to do is get a check from them and have Mr. Murray go down and do what's called a compliance assessment. Which means he's gonna walk over the project and look at it, compare it to the conditions set forth in the special permit, and either find deficiencies or find compliance and report back to us.
And we've sent him a letter demanding that,
We've sent,
several letters.
the owner or the manager of that property letters, and Bill has also responded with an estimate, I believe. He said
$2,000.
$2,000. Now, it sounds like we're focusing a lot on the money, but, we can't do anything without money.
Right.
And we
don't
don't
wanna
have,
get stuck.
yeah, we don't have, yeah, we have already been through this once.
Right.
So, all right. Is that okay for 91 Williamsville Road?
That sounds good. Any questions?
I just had another question, which is, he's looking at for us to issue a certificate that he's in compliance, right?
Well,
Once.
he wants a certificate of completion.
Completion, okay.
We have raised the issue of compliance, and we're going to conduct a compliance assessment before we give him anything.
Before he gets his certificate of completion, okay, and he's aware of that, and, okay.
I believe with the process they're going through is, like if you owned a house, you wanna have the roof inspected and everything's
Mhm.
inspected, and then you can sell it. And I think these guys will probably sell it.
So he
That's
needs a
what they do.
certificate, so we've got a,
We've got a
needs
little
a
leverage.
carrot and a stick here, yeah,
Right.
okay.
So if you want your carrot, you've gotta put our stick up. So.
Okay. Gravel pit report. Bill?
Nothing new. Anything back from Marinelli's?
Yes, actually, that's further down on the
Oh, okay.
old items, but I can
Wanna
bring it up
jump?
now if we'd like. I did email this to everyone.
This is the third piece down, right?
Marinelli's, oh, yeah.
Here we are.
Yep.
This is what I received from Anne and Marinelli and Louise Prowitz. For your info, the property is currently subject to a purchase option agreement, and that any materials that were placed by unauthorized persons on the property without our permission will be promptly removed when the option is exercised. I may have put this in your packet, I'm sorry.
So,
So in true words, what does that mean?
yeah, I mean, without our permission, is the stuff we're looking at them to get removed put there with their permission or without their permission?
I'm
I
sorry,
don't-
I don't know enough
I
of the
don't think
history
it
of
matters.
this.
Well,
It's on their property.
Correct.
but if this
And-
letter, you know, is trying to convince us that they're doing their bit and then they're gonna sell it with the rest of the mess on it because they approved of it being there, then it doesn't get us very far in solving the problem, that's my point.
It says we're also asking that the gate be properly secured, preventing any other dumping to occur again.
That,
Anyone
Which it is.
and
want to
that
see
letter makes it sound like it's a recent event. It's not a recent event. My understanding of the situation was that material's been there for a number of years.
It's been there a long time.
And during the Marinelli hearings, in response to their application for a special permit,
You have
they
it, sorry.
stated that material was their responsibility and that they would remove it. Then when we denied the permit, that statement was no longer operative. They chose not to remove it. What we're trying to do is incentivize them or get them to remove this material. Bill, you visited the site back in June with Tom Bratko.
Yes, they did.
I called Bratko and asked him, Tom Bratko, and asked him if he could give us any image of this, and I offer this picture here.
Yep, those are one.
They're the same
So-
picture.
Right. That's just one of the piles.
Well, there's only one pile, isn't there?
No, there's numerous piles.
Oh, I didn't know that.
There's numerous piles.
This is only one of many?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll have to go out and take more pictures. We only staffed one.
Yeah.
Bill, do we know what this is? I mean, is this,
Officially, I have no idea. I've heard rumors what it could be, but we have no idea.
It looks kinda concrete-ish.
I'll get you a copy.
Again,
Yep, you don't know without
you
an
don't know,
analysis.
and I don't wanna say it, in a
Here's-
recorded meeting, cause I don't wanna
No,
say
we can't
something that's not
speculate.
true. That's right.
Right.
But there's numerous piles, and I maybe 8 of them, big ones.
Really?
Large ones.
I didn't know that.
I believe so. We should, once the weather's better, we should probably take a ride out there, so, or,
Well, what's better than today?
I can email it
it's
to you.
pretty wet out there.
Now, don't we need their permission to go on this property? Would be trespassing.
There you are.
I thought that was an issue in the past.
with these folks.
Well,
Yeah.
this shows up.
Thank you, everyone, sorry.
Thank you
Oh,
very
thank
much.
Have a
you.
good night, take care. Thanks for coming in.
If this is one of 8,
And
Uh,
Tom, don't
or
over
one
your-
of several,
Thank you.
I bet this will show up on Google Earth. This thing's 100 feet long, isn't it?
Couple
I
of them are
see
quite
like
wide.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, maybe 12 dumps of something, little mini piles.
I piled a letter from Marinelli.
So,
I'm-
Oh,
I
the
could probably
original?
pull it
He's
up right
got it.
now for you.
Yes, got it.
I don't need it right now. What we need is a little report,
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry.
little
It's all right,
one-page report.
Okay.
Maybe attach this photograph to it. I can give it to you electronically if you need
Okay,
it.
sure.
I'll give it to Christina.
Okay.
I'll follow that up with an electronic version. That photo was taken in June 2018, when you and
Yes.
Tom went out there to look at it.
Right after I got on the board.
Yes, your inaugural trip.
I can tell you
The-
from experience in the many years I was on the police department, and I started back in the early eighties. I'd gone up there numerous times for calls and accidents for people on four-wheelers and trail bikes, and that material was there back then. Way back in that era. So, and I've seen numerous piles up there, so it's been there for a while.
Yeah, it's not a matter of just the gate not being locked this year. It was, if it was not locked, I don't know if it was or wasn't, but my point, I guess, would be their letter doesn't help us advance the issue.
No.
They did make a statement that they would remove it when they were before us as a board, and, I'm looking for them to fulfill that, I'll call it a promise. The idea that some party is asked to comply with something, and they can simply say it's for sale, and therefore the compliance can't be imposed.
I don't believe that.
It doesn't sound right, because if I was asked to do something that cost me a lot of money and I had to comply with something, I'd run out and buy a for sale sign and drive it in my front yard, and then I'd be immune to enforcement.
Correct.
That's not the way it's not the way I perceive enforcement to work, but, I think we ought to respond to that letter that they sent us. Bill, you wanna draft something, or Christina, you wanna draft something, or?
How about I stop in and see Christina, we can come up with something, is that okay?
Sure.
Yeah, the thrust of it, I think, should be to reiterate the request for removal of this material.
I like the reference to previous, yeah, meeting minutes from that meeting you talked about, where they admitted that it was there and they were gonna remove it. I'd like to see
You can
that.
reference it, I'm not sure I can put my finger on the day or the hour. They were in here for numerous meetings, and it's somewhere on the videotapes, but
Can you give me a ballpark, like you would say back in
2017.
Back in 2017, okay, that's fine.
Do you have any sense of
No, that's
when it
okay.
was? It was their, maybe you should just simply call their engineer. Who was that? We have all this information in the file for Marinelli's permit application.
I can pull it.
All right.
See what we
Let me see if
have.
what day are you in here next week?
I'll be in Wednesday and Thursday next week.
See if I can get in, I think, no, I can't.
Well, I'll see what I
Well,
can
why don't
find
you
and I'll
draft-
email
No, maybe
you.
Thursday I can get in here.
Why don't you draft something and give it to him? And
Hey, if we draft it, are we authorized to send it?
I think we should have a motion and a vote.
you're right.
And also I have a question. So there's
Please.
like three explanations for the big debris pile, right? One is, it was there when they bought the property. Two is, they authorized people to dump it on the property. And three is, people dumped it on the property without their knowledge, or without their permission.
Right.
So,
Well, let's take them one at a time.
yeah,
The
So-
first one?
so if they bought it with the,
They've owned-
their
they've
letter
owned
is,
it for 50 years.
they've owned it for 50 years, all right, and it wasn't there 50 years
Something-
ago.
Yeah, I think their father owned it and operated it as a pit, and then they took it over at some point. But I'll conservatively say 30 years. What'd you say, 1980s?
Yeah, I started in '82.
All right, how many years is that, Bill?
It's like 40 now, but.
It's
So-
pretty close to 40.
Yeah,
So I don't believe the case one
Is right, it's,
applies, and even if it did apply, it was there when they bought it, that's the same thing they want their next owner to do.
to do, exactly.
So they can't really win that
So,
argument.
so
I call that sitting on
Well,
it.
and the second one was, Alice?
where she says, that it's going to, let's see, on the property, they're going to remove debris put on the property without our permission. But presumably, the big piles were put on with their permission,
Well,
right? I mean,
let's think about that one.
If
usually,
they allowed the illegal dumping to occur on their property, they're probably still responsible.
well, usually people fence and gate their property. In this instance, their property isn't fenced and gated.
There's one gate off Phillipston,
Pitcherville.
Road, excuse me, Phillipston Road, that goes up there and it opens up to a lot of different pits, and the town owns one of them. So the town has a key, there's 3 or 4 different large ownerships there, and they all use the same gate.
However,
Back in the
if
years,
you wanted to protect your property, you would
put a gate up.
put a gate at your property's boundary.
Correct.
Right.
That actually,
So-
her last line is, we are also asking that the gate be properly secured, preventing any other dumping to occur again. So that
Which it
means they're
is.
asking the town to gate it?
There is a gate in place and.
There's a gate that is common to several properties.
Correct.
But if they have an obligation to protect their land, I think there's an obligation to protect their land with a gate dedicated to
Separated.
their own property,
Correct.
not common to anybody else's, so that they have complete control of their gate,
Okay.
their non-existent gate at their property line.
Okay.
The
Um,
entrance.
so,
So will
I-
we respond to that in our letter? The request?
I don't
I don't think we
see a
need
need to
Okay.
with,
No.
So, make a motion that,
isn't there a third case you cited? One is it was there when they got there, the other one is the gate was
they
left
permitted
open.
it, and the other one, it was, they didn't permit it, it
All right,
was dumped illegally.
they're both the same.
But you're looking for, I'm just trying to understand what it is she's offering here, it doesn't sound like
She's
much.
not offering anything.
Right,
She's offering, I'll have the next guy do it.
right. So.
Yeah, I love
And
that.
undermines the whole concept of enforcement.
Right.
So we need, the letter we need to send to her says they're responsible for all, removal of all illegally,
Well, just the material.
Yeah.
We don't care how
For-
it got there.
for
It's
all
on their
dumped
property and-
material, all,
Patiently wait for your prompt response to our request to properly remove the unauthorized material on your property.
Yeah,
so I make a motion, we send a letter to these 2 women in response to their letter to that effect.
I second that.
all right. All in favor?
I would also put in there authorized, because if it's they may not have known that what was being dumped there shouldn't have been.
It doesn't matter.
All
It's
debris,
on-
authorized or
That's not for us to
unauthorized, right.
determine either,
Okay.
so. Really.
Should we also ask for permission to go on the property and document just what's there? When the weather clears?
And the removal.
Well, we will ultimately, when they come in with a plan
We'll have to hire
remove
Bill.
it. Yeah, we have somebody watch, so they don't just dig a hole and bury it, they actually take it off the site.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
I think it is
So
too.
we
Ask for
ask-
permission.
Ask permission. I'm not sure under state law we need to ask permission. We, as planning board members, we can do things, but let's ask permission. And
That's the
And be
proper
the
thing to
polite-
do.
yeah.
Yes.
It is. Okay, moving right along. Scenic Road Report, that's Craig. We dealt with that a little bit tonight with the rocks jumping in.
I do feel bad for the individual that came in that kinda got stuck in that position, but.
This gentleman here,
Yes.
yeah, I do.
That's
too.
gonna happen a lot because a lot of folks don't know about it, and again, ignorance of the regulations.
Well, when we get down a little farther, we got a website report.
Right.
You wanna talk about what you did on the website to help people understand that the scenic road law exists?
There already was a small thing on the scenic road on the right-hand side. I also made sure that the scenic road application was on there because people were coming in with, I'm not sure where they got the application actually.
Really?
So I did put up the scenic road application and I'm hoping to make it a little bit more comprehensive, but I have been discussing with Ryan the concept of a if this then that, you know, if you wanna do this, then make sure you fill out this type of report. They're trying to possibly put all the forms online as well. So it's gonna be a work in progress, which would be nice, especially since at the moment I'm currently looking to update some of our Form A, B, C, so, especially with the fees and update, everything like that, so.
That's great.
There is a button, I think, how do I,
Yes.
and it would be perfect to slide one under there. How do I put a driveway in or enter a newly purchased raw lot, you know?
Yep.
But that's
Right.
a,
I
another
think they're
one of our
actually looking at a
projects.
flow chart type system too, cause if you'll think about it, some of these things, it's, you know, make sure you go here, you still have to do this, then this, then this, then this, and this,
Right,
and this.
should pull up a list for you.
Yeah, that way you
That
don't
would be
have
nice.
to wonder, okay, what's my first step, then my next step.
Right, the more information you
And-
give folks, the easier it is for them.
Right,
And someday, we have an obligation, I think, to make it easier for them.
Right.
You know,
right.
they shouldn't have to bounce
Right.
from, board to board. All right, noise report, what do you got, Kendall?
Want me to read the whole thing?
No, I want you to give a mini report, we got 25 items.
First of all,
to
I
go
wanna
through.
thank Christina for helping me, not helping me, she went out and actually got
The information?
for me, yes, she did. So on
Thank
page
you.
1 of 5, at the very top, it just shows from A to E what the Hubbardston bylaws mention noise in several places, which we really don't have much. Now, if you look at Leominster's, Leominster has a very good noise ordinance, and I went there's pages of information on that. And just, if you go to the second page,
Is this Lemonster starting here?
Yes, it's
Yes.
their ordinance.
yeah, it doesn't show it on the other, well, there's a slight mark
Oh, right here?
up there, it's a noise pollution means a condition caused by noise, blah, 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 that gives you,
That's in the, public health code too.
yes, it is. That gives you some information, and then if you drop down on that page to scope, if you go, you read that the rest of the document, it gives them a, certain things like all public address loudspeakers, whether they're mobile or stationary, they have to be, shall be prohibited from operating between certain hours
Mm-hmm.
of the day and evening, no automobile, motorcycle, any type of motor vehicle like that.
So, you're saying it's all out, so I don't have to read it all.
Right,
These big
it's-
loud diesels that come out, it's 5 in the morning.
They're
They
not
come up
supposed to
here
be.
and they come
Exactly.
top of the hill of Brigham Street, cause I hear them all the time.
I live on Brigham.
Yeah, okay, so you hear the same, and it rattles your windows, it's so loud.
It's Jake breaks.
No, I'm talking the new
Oh,
pickup trucks.
coming up.
The new pickup trucks, personal ones.
Really?
You must hear them all the time. I hear them all the time.
You've got
I think they're bigger trucks.
No,
Maybe
those
they're-
are pickups. But what does the law stipulate, that those are noise constraints?
There are, they
I
can
mean,
only
time
be,
constraints.
the time constraints are like seven in the morning till 10 PM. So 7 AM to 10 PM.
And who enforces it? And like when I worked for the state, we had decibel meters that we would measure all these different levels, and if you were over, you got fined.
It's in there.
In Leominster, the Leominster Police Chief is, not the police department,
They can do it?
They do it, and they have the equipment,
Awesome.
yeah.
Maybe we need to talk to our,
Police chief.
before trying to make a regulation. I'm
I
not
think
sure
we
it'd be
should
our
review the whole
regulation.
thing. I don't wanna get on the other side of the coin. I don't want so many rules, you can't sneeze at 2 o'clock in the morning. We are still in the town of Hubbardston. I think that's important. I think we need a little balance. We
You
don't-
know, I agree with that 100%, because
They
there are
also-
some exemptions.
Also said in this though that, it's a non-criminal. I mean,
It-
they keep it non-criminal.
It's a ticket.
All of these are,
But
non-criminal.
the bottom line is I firmly believe in too many rules.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to review it all before we just say, okay, rubber stamp it, and
Oh, yeah,
really
absolutely.
look at it to see what it says.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna, well, I shouldn't express my opinion. This is a
I don't
big,
think we need
This
to
is
read
an-
it now.
yes,
It
this is very
it
in-depth.
it is,
why don't we
it
take
is.
it home and give it a read?
Yes,
Yep.
thank you very much.
Well,
Good work.
Thank you, and again, Christina,
Oh,
thank you very much.
I thought there was an action plan to talk to the police chief about, a noise ordinance and see what he said, because we will be, if such a thing passed, we would be burdening him
You're
with
absolutely
yet
right.
another thing to do.
Right,
And that's a little unfair unless we get his,
bring them into the picture.
his, input on it. So,
Right.
I thought someone was, I just vaguely remember, one of us was gonna go talk to the,
I believe
Chief
that was
of
gonna be
Police.
me.
all right.
Oh.
Thank you for volunteering.
Well, thanks for
Not a
doing
problem.
that.
You're not a problem.
Why don't you,
I will
why don't
take
you
care
go
of
have
it.
a conversation with him about it?
Yes, I will.
Not necessarily every little paragraph, but
No, just
conceptually, you know,
Conceptually, sure.
where
yeah.
is he on this?
What do you think of this?
Yeah, exactly.
Because years ago, it was the police department would go out and monitor different things like that. We had a lot of different cases of things happening where one landowner was doing something to bother the next door neighbor, it was too loud, it would come to us for complaints, it'd go to court, it'd get thrown out, never got founded. Something like this would be very helpful to fix problems like that.
Mhm.
Cause I don't think any of those things ever got solved, again, I don't know now, but it
Some-
might be helpful.
Some recent issues have been solved. Police have talked to people and.
Oh, good, so maybe times are changing like that,
Mhm.
but.
Sometimes effective speaking to people is more effective than bringing them to court and all that
Oh, of course
stuff,
it
but-
is.
Yeah, but
Absolutely.
some folks you can't do that,
Yeah, okay, you have to have something behind you.
correct.
Yeah.
Full
Okay,
substance.
So are we thinking this would be a regulation we would pass, would be since we're in charge, purpose, is a regulation that the planning board would pass?
Wouldn't this have to come up?
Cause the
the
bylaws
town.
say, here, in the purpose section, this is of our bylaws, it states that the purpose of the zoning bylaws is to protect the town from excessive or unnecessary noise. So that would be your, where we would derive that jurisdiction, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you'd see it, yeah, I just have a problem with, we put a regulation in that the police have to enforce, you know? It's
Again,
an
I think,
issue.
I think the whole town needs to look at it, and then I think as a bylaw change or anything new, we'd have to put it for a
Put for town
townwide
meeting.
vote. Well, vote,
Yeah,
yeah, we can't do a bylaw by ourselves.
Correct.
right.
correct, so it's something I think we
However-
should review and bring forward.
Didn't you, these, Christina's analysis, number 1 on page 1, A, B, C, D, E.
Yeah.
All are, extracted or derived from zoning bylaws,
Correct.
right? Not general bylaws, but zoning bylaws. That's what I see, 4-8.
Right at the top of the page.
Right.
Well, Article 22
Two
of
is actually from
marijuana is a
general.
general.
Yeah, the only problem I had, and I wanted to bring this up with all A, B, C, D, and E, is all of those words are subjective.
Mm-hmm.
From one person to the next, they'll be able to tell you what they consider unnecessary noise.
Correct.
Sure.
You know, a child screaming at 3 o'clock in the morning is unnecessary.
It can be
Yeah.
excessive. It should be excessive.
It can be excessive.
My point was,
Yeah.
my point was, I thought, Bill, you told us that the noise ordinance used to be under the Board of Health,
At one time it was.
and we were gonna resurrect that one and just see what it said.
I don't even know if it's still in the regulations, I have
Oh,
this.
it might not be, but it
Right,
might be a
right.
record of it somewhere,
Right,
and we'd wanna understand why it is no longer enforced, or used, or
I think
applied.
things were changed over the years and,
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
okay. Ours do too.
right.
But that was just one more reference material we wanted to look at.
We'll have to go back in the archives, see if we can find it.
Kendall.
Yeah.
You're volunteering for that one too. Noise is you.
Was there a Board of Health bylaw, right? It could make sense that it'd be the Board of Health.
Board of Health has a lot of power. If you really read the regulations and the CMRs and.
But if our objective in the end is to propose either a town bylaw or a planning board bylaw to regulate noise, it would have to go to a town meeting,
Mhm.
town vote. And
I-
it would have to involve the enforcement people and,
I really think this needs to be reviewed by us, and then we should send an appropriate informational packet out to all the boards, selectmen included. What do you think of this? Is what we're looking to do. Let's come and see if we can all come up with a final product, and then we all agree upon it. Who's gonna be in charge? Who will enforce it? And how it's gonna work and what it'll look like. We'll ask the selectmen to put it on the warrant to bring the town vote or town meeting.
Probably won't be this annual town meeting.
No.
It might be the next one.
Yeah,
'cause this
yeah,
one's
so
a
I think we
little
have
tight.
time, but I think it's an appropriate thing to do, and we wanna make sure we do it right, and again, I don't wanna make something so stringent. We're not the city of Leominster, and we don't
Yeah.
have that many people, and we don't live on top of each other, so we can write it a little differently, but still have some strength to the regulation.
And with respect to the old Board of Health regulation, if there was such a thing, if we can find it, we might find out why it wasn't,
Why it didn't work.
carried through, or, yeah, why it didn't work. What happened to
I
it?
believe, and again from memory, I believe, there was no substance, and there was no way to back it up.
Too soft, too fuzzy.
And I know from experience from going to court years ago, with problems with disputing neighbors, nobody would come to a finding. you know, the person
Yeah.
that lives next door can do their loud activity next door to this person here, starting at 7 in the morning till 7 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night. And I think the folks ended up moving, they had to sell their home.
My.
And it never got settled, and that's, there's more than one case of that.
Yeah, and there's all kinds of hard feelings, all
Right,
things
so-
that happen, so.
And something like this would help really put that to bed, but you,
Right.
again, we wanna make sure we do it in a nice way.
And no gasoline operated, equipment, all has to be electric.
Ah.
All right, are we pretty set on noise, and we can give Kendall a couple little assignments? and
Yes,
then-
thank you.
You want a motion?
Do we need a motion?
I think we need a motion, it's just the to-do list. I'd be glad to do a motion if we want, but
I don't
what's he
think we
gonna
need
say?
one. We're working
to
on
you
the
guys.
old business.
Okay.
Because we've already chief, talked to the Board of Health,
Talk to the Board of Health.
and,
History, right, okay.
we all look at this document he handed out. An economic and community development report, the committee still hasn't been formed. I believe Tom Collier resigned from it, and that leaves, Rick Green and Tom Larson is the last two members
On the committee.
from the old days, so to speak, and I don't know if they've re-enlisted. And I'll just continue to pursue that with Lori, and
Yes.
she's been helping me with it and just keeping me informed. But
Right.
it's not something that has suddenly blossomed.
Right.
Is that something Ryan's working with too, to try to get going again?
Yes.
Yes.
I think several people. I think this fellow from Hardwick,
The
Tim, you know who I mean. He came in here one night.
Yes.
Todd Miller.
The 5 towns.
Yeah, Todd Miller.
Does
He's-
anybody mind if I turn that heat down a little bit?
Do what you please.
I'd be delighted to.
I'm very warm, and I can feel it blowing.
Fine
You
with
must be
me.
comfortable. You were in a warm climate.
I'm wearing a warm one.
You were in a warm climate.
Oh.
It's just-
Barbados.
Oh, you came
Oh, is
back
that
from
where you were?
vacation
I
for this
did,
meeting?
just-
Excellent.
We got back last week late. It was lovely.
Your daughter wasn't with you, was she?
She was.
Ah, did she miss the cold weather?
We had to drag her back. You have to work, kid, yeah.
Master plan updates.
I have no updates to mine yet.
All right, Bill, no. We were going out and talking to other committees.
Mm-hmm.
Alice?
We were working on developing a form
That's right, we had talked about.
To ask them?
to
make the
send out to
try to,
people.
rather than just send a model, can you respond to this? And Christina did a very nice job of developing this form.
Oh, thank you.
Which I thought, I really kinda dropped the ball on it, so if you could give us another meeting, we'll try to work it out.
Okay.
I think, one of the things about it, I mean, it was working on, the framework that's in the statute about what, master plans are supposed to cover. So she sort of laid it out that way. We were trying to get a form to go out where somebody could fill it in electronically too.
Right.
That
That'd be
wouldn't be a
nice.
problem.
And-
I can do a form.
And we
fill.
just need to sit down and work on it.
Okay.
So, you agree?
Yeah.
All right, Alice, no
Okay.
more vacations.
No more
Ah.
vacations
So
for
do
me.
did you two ladies have a draft of something already that you've got on paper,
Christina
or?
did a draft of the plan, and
Can
I
you
don't think it's
send
ever
that?
been distributed,
I
has
can
it?
send
Can
that
you
out.
send that to me? That would be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
She's on the right track, I think. I do think we should probably ask, I'm not quite sure how Ryan fits into this. I know there are pieces of it he's working on, but maybe we should
Speak with
let
him.
him, at least
bring him in
show
the
him
loop.
that form
I
too.
told him I was doing it.
Okay.
I haven't seen the copy, cause I wanted to
You
make
have
sure
to
that
tell,
he wasn't trying to do something about the master plan on his own. I always try and check with all the departments, make sure nobody's duplicating.
The
So-
reason I ask is with his original checkbox, he told me, that he had to see the capital improvement plan, so if you look at the ALs, and with, long-range facility plan. And he had said a number of months ago, well, we're trying to get these groups activated and going, why don't you hold off and I'll have some more information. But if,
Well, he's a great resource, just keep checking
we'll
with
keep
him.
him.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
If we can get him to do a couple chapters, all
Yeah,
yeah.
the more power to him.
So that was
Right.
the other question I had was to, when we distribute it, maybe he's got, we need a distribution
Yeah.
list so we hit the right people too.
Right,
So it's
right.
not just getting the right form, but it's also getting the distribution list. So maybe Christine and I can report back with the list of who gets it and the form.
That'd be nice.
Yeah, and what we're looking for on the who gets it list was, we thought there might be room to either cull the list or consolidate some
Yes,
groups.
that's what
Yes.
we talked about last
and,
month.
You know,
last
get it
meeting.
down to a more reasonable,
Yes.
a more manageable list. So that'd be great. We can wait till next month for that.
With regards to the master plan update, do we wanna bring in the DLTA?
That's a little down the list, but we could do them now.
Okay, the only reason I ask is, Ryan did send out an email, stating that though we voted on it last time about the 2 chapters we wanted the DLTA grant to do, implementation has to be done at the end. It can't be one of the ones that we're proposing for with the grant, so the board needs to vote for another, chapter to be.
Do we happen to have the list?
Well, this is in the second page of your
Oh,
packet.
okay,
What
I'm
has to
sorry.
wait till the, I just didn't catch that.
Implementation.
Oh,
basi-
implementation, all right.
Basically, how they're going to implement the entire plan, so it has to wait till the end, so that they have the entire plan
Right.
before they can write the implementation.
If you'll recall, we voted for,
This is on the DLT.
the,
Yes.
the
A.
history, we voted for a history, in fact, I don't see it on the list.
No, basically what we did was we didn't go off of that list, we went off of the,
DLTA's,
yeah, and the one that, Ryan suggested
Historical.
was facilities and services or transportation as the other,
all right, but the one we voted for
Was
was
histor-
historical,
cultural,
cultural, and natural
yes,
I guess resources is the right
Yes.
word.
And the other one was facilities
facilities and services or transportation were the 2 he suggested,
or transportation, they're
yes.
separate.
But any of the other ones could also be, used. We used as one of the criteria we discussed last time we voted, that, we would use such a grant, which is really labor, to try to help some part of our list, some organization on our list that doesn't have a dedicated labor. You know, the police chief has somebody to help him, and fire chief has somebody to help him.
Right.
You're right.
And we went to the historical commission because they are 100% volunteers, there's no paid,
Right.
somebody working with them. We might look over the whole list and recognize that the Board of Health has a clerk, Select Board has a clerk, Building has a clerk, Capital Improvement Plan has a whole committee forming, and they're combined with the long-range facilities plan. I think I tried to explain that last time. Community Preservation Committee, they have quite a team. Concom has a clerk. Council on Aging's, I think they are 100% volunteers.
They are.
Department of Public Works is DPW, that's a paid position. Economic Development Committee, that was my project, and it's done. It's amazing how I picked the one that's done. The Fire Department, then this Historical, Cultural, and Natural Commission. Housing Committee, we don't really have that.
Working on it.
Well, actually, no, this Housing Committee isn't the Affordable Housing Committee, which doesn't exist anymore,
Okay.
isn't the issue of affordable housing. I believe there's a housing, I see it on ballots. We are supposed to elect people to this Housing Commission, and,
That's the housing committee, is that?
yeah, and I believe it's an orphan. I don't believe there's anybody on it. I think Dennis
Yes.
was on it.
Yes.
And I think he's no longer on it. So that's a possibility if we wanted to do it, I guess. Library has a staff. Open Space Committee is complete. Parks Commission, planning board, we're gonna do our own. Police, school, town administrator, town center committee is a short-lived, well, relatively short-lived thing. So I'm coming down this and seeing parks, council on aging, housing. Anybody else gonna throw some in the bucket here? I don't wanna dictate.
Council on Aging might be, you know, it is a service in the town. It might be one that DLTA would be very good with helping them.
About,
And they do,
You think we should talk to Ryan too before we, cause he might have consolidated some of these already.
well, his memo said transportation, which I guess is a category,
Highway.
but we don't even really have it on our list. Do you have, what else, do you have his memo?
Yes.
If I could ask you to please just read what he said. I think he said long-range planning and transportation.
I will submit the application with help from Karen as a suspected implementation goes last. May I suggest facilities and services as one, or transportation? Let me know the second choice and I will get this submitted. The deadline is March 4th, so we do need to write this up.
Facilities and services?
Yes.
I guess their definition of chapters is a little bit different than ours.
Correct.
yeah, so services would be a whole bunch of these people.
Yeah,
It
that
would
would
be the
really
history, it
encompass a
would be
lot.
the aging, it would be, but
Be
maybe
fire
that would
and
be all
police.
right.
It'd be fire and police, yeah.
Public Works, that's a service.
Right.
But if we have MRPC do a facilities and services, does that mean a whole bunch of these things go away? That it gets thrown into that bucket and we don't have them as individual things?
I don't know.
I believe that they'll get they'll get input from the facility. They're not gonna like just do it themselves. I think they're gonna.
You mean MRPC would do it themselves?
MRPCs
Oh,
won't just do it themselves,
Oh,
they'll
no,
get
they
input.
visit.
They go
Right.
talk to everybody, but they come back with a completed project.
Right, and then we wouldn't have to get the
We don't have to worry
information from
about it. It
those.
would come to us.
And Council on Aging, I think a very high percentage of our town's population is
Volunteer.
50 and over, or 55 and over. I have the number somewhere.
I don't understand, does Ryan want us to pick one of the services, or
Now, facilities and services is one chapter,
just one whole chapter?
yes.
It's a chapter through the eyes of MRPC. It apparently isn't a chapter through our old, this came from our old master plan, didn't it?
That's just a list of the boards and committees. I'm not sure where that list came in. It predates my, being on this
Well,
board.
what did the old master plan contain? Used to be one over here 50 years ago.
Okay.
It's not on the shelf anymore?
Well, there's a master plan on our website.
Yeah, it's a very old plan from the 80s.
Oh, it is, it's from the 80s, but it has
If-
the, I'm looking for the table of contents.
I pulled it out of the file drawer, Joyce got it out for me.
Yeah,
And
that's where I got it too.
Yes, it doesn't offer much in any of, it's really mostly about the school and zoning.
Yeah, it was, I think they only did a couple of chapters based on what they were sort of forecasting at that time.
Right. So if that's true, then facilities and services have never really been looked at in the context of a master plan for decades.
Right.
So why not pick facility and services and see where it goes?
It does cover a lot.
Master plan,
think that's a-
1988.
Yeah.
Let me read the table of contents. Guess what, there is none.
Yeah.
Whoops.
Yeah.
It really,
It was a very hard read.
It's Hubbardston's assets and constraints. That's the first major issue. And then, oh, it's got a lot of pages, 105 pages.
does that include the appendices?
I have no idea. This is the first time I've opened it in 5 years,
I think it does, and I think
3
that
years.
it was,
The next one is growth management issues, goals and strategies. And the next one is implementation, phase 3, implementation. But I don't see,
A breakdown?
chapters the way we're talking of them.
I think it makes sense of doing what you just said there. Services and.
Facilities and
Facilities
services.
and
Because
services.
the one thing it will give you is they'll look at what other master plans have done with that chapter.
Right.
And then we'll have a template to work with
we
and
can
some
cut-
data.
And then when we do it in 10 years, we can actually go off of the previous one and say, okay,
And
this
then
is
we
what
can
we're
cut this
updating.
list way down after whatever ones they get done for us.
Yeah. could
And
also
he
look at-
also said transportation.
Transportation is another one of the requirements. So I think he's going off of the requirements list according
There's
to
a
the
state law
MGL.
list.
And there's 10 requirements for an MGL, including implementation, which is the one we voted last time.
Right.
And facilities and services is one, the cultural historical is another, so,
At least if we come up with that tonight,
right, then we
So-
have another 2 done,
then, well,
right.
and then maybe they'll give us a definition of what that means, which ones we can get rid of.
All right, so what's the sense of the board? What would we? I think implementation is very important because these things sit on the shelves unless we address it at some time in the future, maybe not tonight. but-
Correct.
Well, should I make a motion with, regarding the facilities and services section? Does people agree with that?
I'm in favor of it.
Well, we make a motion and we second it.
That,
and
We'll vote on it.
That we, right, identify facilities and services as an area which we would like to apply for the DLTA grant assistance in developing.
Okay, seconded?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye?
Aye.
Unanimous.
I think all our votes are unanimous.
Mm.
Very rarely do we split. Okay, back to that agenda and keep plowing. We just did the DLTA grant, and we did the master plan, and there's another grant. And
DOEA?
I have asked Ryan to go back in and further define that. There's some questions about it. He's gonna get up the application and talk to the Montechusett Regional Planning Commission people again and present it to us, I guess. Does that take us all the way down to Muni Solar?
Well, we skipped planning board accounts and commercial development
Oh,
guidelines.
please.
Planning board accounts, there's not really much to, update at this moment. I'm still looking into the affordable housing. However, I was able to get a couple more years worth of data. So I'm able to go back to the beginning of the accounts.
Oh,
Now
wow.
all that remains is, matching the incoming sums to who put them there. Because the line items aren't exactly, as verbal as we'd like them to be, because of course they were just entered into a software. But as soon as I have that, I'll be able to offer a more comprehensive report on the beginning to the end of the affordable housing account and where the monies were spent.
But it's not just the affordable housing account, is it?
No, but I'll eventually go into the next accounts, but affordable housing is what sort of caught me up in the last
All right.
couple of months.
It would include things like a Marinelli account or any applicant's account
Yes,
ultimately.
right, anyone who's given us money in the past. The problem is that originally I was only told to go back 5 years. And in order to define exactly who put in what money, I may have to pull literally a line by line.
Go
at
farther
the-
back, you mean?
Well, no, just pull a line by line. Some of these don't actually say what the money coming in was from. They sometimes just give
Okay.
check numbers.
Oh,
So-
okay.
So it's going to be a little bit more in-depth once I get into that. So at the moment, I'm on affordable housing. Once I'm done with that one and to the board's satisfaction, then I'll move on to the next one.
And the work product is in the form of a little spreadsheet of some type,
Yes.
ins and outs, like a checkbook.
Yes, especially in, when we have a check coming in now, we wanna make sure that
A well annotated checkbook.
yes, that we have our own checkbook concept so that we don't have to wonder anymore where the,
Okay.
so.
I knew a guy that balanced his checkbook by
Can I bust
canceling
him
his
on that?
account.
I'm sorry? Yeah.
All right, planning board accounts. Commercial development guidelines, I put them up on the wall, and someday we'll return to them and talk about them. I think when we do, we ought to have, Bill Murray here. He sees a lot of this kind of work, commercial development, and he may be able to help us with that. I think we have an expense account where we can buy a couple hours of his time and pay him.
Well, the communities might have something like that too, that we could probably pull from.
Well, yeah, I
Guideline.
stole the last one from Northborough.
Yeah,
You're-
yeah.
You're welcome to steal from somebody else.
Yeah.
No, they're all public documents. They're,
Right.
they're available to the public, and they're not adopted by any other towns, but they were sourced from Northborough. They did a good job.
Yes, they did.
Muni Solar, Bill, I think you wanted that on the agenda. What do you got in
No,
mind?
that's municipal solar.
Well, I call it municipal.
No, he wanted the residential solar, which is further down. New.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, shoot, I
Am
didn't
I,
bring that
uh,
with me, I didn't pick up
Am
on
I
that.
doing this wrong? Muni Solar was, we forwarded to Ryan some pictures of where you could put solar on some of the town buildings, and
Oh,
Bill
yes.
Murray's report of where you might be able to locate it on land. Again, town-owned land. That's in Ryan's lap. I think what Ryan's dealing with is the budget, and this issue won't come back up onto the surface for a while. And that's okay.
So we're gonna postpone that one for a while.
Yeah, it's old business. We'll carry it.
Yep.
Next month, we'll talk about it again if he's able to get out from underneath the budget process. Electronic filing project, Christina.
At the moment, the electronic filing project is, being dealt with as it looks like a project for the entire, I know that, for the entire town. I know that Lori and Ryan have had people out, getting quotes on how much it would cost to do all of our files. Not just planning board, not just
Right.
street, but everything in this building, everything in that building, all of the plans, all the rolls of plans that we have. And also there'd be the concept of, prior to that, we would have, us go through and make sure we don't have any duplication. So that, we wouldn't obviously be wasting their time and our money by having them scan in duplicates. So duplicates would be, eradicated according to the regulations of the state with regards to, when you can get rid of things.
There's a Document Preservation Act.
Exactly, and then after that, everything would be scanned. So there actually wouldn't be any worry about, duplication at the moment. I know personally that the planning board files are duplicated a lot in Joyce's town clerk files. After that, you wouldn't have to worry about duplication because we'd all have it digitally, so it wouldn't matter what we called whose files. It would exist in one place, and that would be enough, because everyone would have access to it digitally.
I haven't read the Document Preservation Act in a long time, but I did read it once. And there's a pretty good planning board section. And if people haven't read it, you might look it up on the web and take a glance at it. It's only about 3 pages of planning board documents to be saved, and it says how long you have to save them and whatnot. But in our instance, I think some of our drawings and plans, when in doubt, I would keep it. I wouldn't, if it says get rid of it in 7 years or get rid of it in 10 years, our work is such long cycle that I would be very reluctant to dispose of any old plans unless they're duplicates. So we'll be careful when we enter the plans and drawing as well. Anything else on electronic filing?
Not at the moment.
Any questions?
No, I think it's an awesome thing. It's time, about
Yeah,
time
I
we
think
get the
it-
town up with the times.
All right, Mr. Demalia was in, and we gave him a 90-day extension out until April, and we'll probably see him then, I hope. There are a number of, he said he didn't have any commercial opportunities in town, but I think there's several. I think there's I'll just say, I think there's several. We're not in the business of talking about real estate listings, but if you drive up and down Route 68, you'll see a handful of commercial opportunities. Affordable Housing Production Plan. Alice, you wanna?
Well, we approved it. Has it gone to the
Yes.
select board yet?
I have a letter here from Ryan saying that it was sent to the select board, and he'll be asking them how long they want to review it, 2 to 4 weeks maximum before voting on it in open session. When that goes on the agenda, Ryan said he would love to have representatives from the planning board on hand during the vote to answer any questions. But previously it was just basically giving it to them. Ryan has given it to them and given them a certain timetable to review it.
That action was taken Monday. I happened to attend that meeting.
Good.
And they got it, but I forgot to say that this is the same plan they approved and reviewed and approved in 2017.
I made Ryan aware of that in my
Okay,
original
good.
email to him, so that he was
And,
aware that.
They shouldn't have to pour through it line by line, but they have it, they're gonna work on it, and that's great. They give it back to us, I think,
No,
and then
we've
it goes
signed
to
it,
the
they
state.
approve it, and then we send it in. Oh, yes,
I need to update it with just the date of their approval and then send it out, so.
Do
there's
we-
a letter.
Does this board sign it, or are we leaving the old signatures on?
No, well, it's not signatures necessarily. What it is it's the dates of approval.
Okay,
There aren't actual signatures.
And then there's a cover letter which can
Right.
go in, signed by Ryan.
Right, and then that
Chief
will be sent
executive.
off.
did you give him the old cover letter that,
I did,
great,
so.
So will you notify everybody, and I think as many of
wish
us
you had
as
a
can go to that
photographic
meeting should
memory.
come.
Okay.
My older brother does. Incredible.
I know what I'm looking for, but I can't find it.
Okay.
I think that's great, so it's good progress.
Okay, notify.
Should be sometime in March.
It's coming up quick.
we all set with that one?
Mm-hmm.
Updating rules and regulations, Christina, again, would you take us through that?
It's just the concept that, the rules and regulations that we have, we just updated the fees in them, and when we did update the fees, we have to update the document has to be updated in order to insert that, and a couple other things were, noted within that document, like, was it rules and restorations or something on the top of one of the
Number
pages?
13.
Reputations, I think, or something, it was funny.
It was number 13, paragraph 13, I
Yeah,
don't remember what it said.
Exactly, there's.
So you need some proofreaders.
Yeah, so the whole document might need to be relooked at,
Oh, it was an A&R list.
The A&R list also does not match with the current A&R list we have on the website, even though that is supposed to be a page taken out of our rules and regulations. It was not. This is the A&R list we have up there now that we use on the website is a retyped version that mimics that page, but is not that. I noticed because certain sentences were reworded. So, and it also has an extra item number 13 on it, which is not in our rules and regulations. So it's just something to revisit. Going through the entire rules and regulations might be a good idea, but I believe we'd have to have a public hearing. We'd have to look through it ourselves and figure out what we want to change, and then go for public hearing with a 2 weeks notice to the public, letting them know we're gonna go through just for what changes we would be looking to make. Because, I mean, for fees, that was one thing.
Yes.
We have the authority to update the fees, but, and if we're just going through for grammatical, I can't imagine that we're gonna have any pushback for changing the words to the right thing. But if we're gonna do things like update the A&R requirements or anything like that, we might have to.
Yeah, on the A&R, I was thinking about it, and I think what we suffered from was a simple oversight. I believe that list was revised properly, and what we need to do is go back and find that motion that did that. And if the motion said to revise the list and the regulation, then we can just belatedly revise the regulation.
Right.
If it failed to say that, then we'll have to open up the whole public hearing and do it right.
Right.
Or do it, I shouldn't say right, do it.
The only issue with that is that it's literally the last time that the rules and regulations were officially amended was in 2000. And so I would have to look through 20 years worth of minutes to find out when it was done.
No, you'd have to look through 2000. Only 2000. If
Oh, no,
nothing-
because 2000 didn't have that amendment. So, there's, the A&R list was done sometime between then and now.
Didn't carry a footnote?
No, there's no footnote on when,
Okay.
Oh,
Well,
that
then
one
maybe
page
it's
was,
easier just to revise it.
as I said, it's, you know,
That would be easier, yeah.
yeah,
Just do it.
I'm happy to take a proofread through it.
oh,
too.
yeah, we could, I totally have
Send you
fun
notes.
with that, but.
Okay. what else pops out?
The planning board website we talked a little bit about. Is there anything major to add to that discussion?
No, not at the moment. It's basically a work in progress. I keep working with Joyce. The agendas are now posted slightly differently. They're not an attached PDF. We're trying to keep everything a little bit more in line with what everybody's doing, so it looks
Mhm.
uniform, looks a little more professional.
Very good. And then we have our CPA project funding extension. Did we get that to them?
Yes, we did,
Who did
and
we
I have
send it
not heard
to?
anything
Danielle?
back. I'm
Did
sorry?
we send it to Danielle Arakellian?
No, you gave 10 copies to the town clerk is the procedure, and
that's
she
right.
gives it to them.
Okay. They're gonna have another meeting, and we've held up our end of the deal, I think. We didn't spend any of those dollars, did we?
No, the $50,000 is still intact. It's still in the account. I checked.
Does the planning board have any other outstanding grants or town funds or anything that carry with it any kind of a deadline, you have to do it by a certain date?
Not that I'm aware of. I've
Okay.
been looking at the accounts, and these are the only ones I've been able to find so far. It was interesting, I didn't even see the one for the CPA funds, because when I talked to Lori Barkus, she was like, oh no, that's under the CPA. And then I looked into it, I went, no, actually it's ours, and she went, oh. It just said, it came from the CPA, so I assumed it was theirs.
Right.
So, because it had never been touched, so she'd never had to deal with it, so
Oh.
that was the,
Lori Barkus is our town accountant?
yes.
Okay. So, does that kill off the old business list?
It does.
So you're gonna go through there and wipe some out after you review the meeting minutes, you'll strike them, if we're done on any of them. I don't know if we're done on too
I don't
many,
know that
but-
we're done with any of them, actually.
Yeah.
No, we
All
haven't
right.
actually eliminated any of them.
But
so-
we're updated.
Yes.
All right, the next topic is approval of minutes.
Yep.
Have we got anything to,
Yeah,
in here?
it's
Are
in your
those-
packet.
Are these the same minutes you sent to us on email?
It is,
Okay.
yes.
Alright, I've read every one of
I've read
those.
those.
Yep. But if you need them,
Which
they're,
dates were they?
this is December
November?
5th and December 12th.
December 5th. December 12th.
Want a motion make a motion to approve the minutes of December, what's the first set?
Fifth.
December 5th?
Yeah,
I'll second
December
that.
5th.
Can we motionize both of them into one?
Well, let's do one at a time, if you don't mind. Peter Engel was here from, what used to be Seaboard Solar, but now is,
He was from the engineering firm. He wasn't
Yeah.
from Seaboard Solar.
no, well, he was representing that
Yes.
project.
Yes.
And that's one of the ones with the complaint on it, so. All right. This is where we sent Ryan the solar report and.
Bill, I'm sorry, did you try to second?
I guess I did second it.
I am afraid, you were absent that day. I'm not sure you can vote on these.
Oh, that's right, I wasn't here.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Good. Good to know. I can't do that, you.
Bad boy.
Yeah. Sometime.
Maybe, there's just one comment this doesn't involve really the minutes, but where we voted, on bringing the Affordable Housing Committee forward and that we should probably somewhere make note of the decision to not make it a separate committee.
Should we do that in today's meeting? Because, I mean, it wasn't done, it was
At this
done-
time, right?
Yeah, exactly.
This relates to
Yeah.
this, so maybe we can add it later.
These stand, but
Right.
we need to do something.
Maybe today mention that the Affordable Housing Committee's been sort
Right.
of disbanded.
I thought we did it last meeting.
No, it happened
I think
after
we
last
did.
meeting.
Good. They're all running together. All right, let's put that issue for tonight's minutes. All right, Alice?
Yes.
And then we'll, take a motion to approve the December 5th.
So I made that motion and I guess Kenny seconded it. He
I'll
couldn't
second
second
it.
it.
I can't second it, I wasn't
I
here.
second that.
I think it's accurate, it just begs the question here.
And take a look at all the attachments too. Christina does a good job of capturing some of these documents.
I think she's doing an excellent job at that.
And doing an excellent job in general. So,
Thank you.
do we have a motion and second to that?
Yes.
Yep, we just need a vote.
Then we need a vote. All in favor of accepting these minutes?
Aye.
Now we're into December 12th.
Now, that one I can vote on.
On the 12th, we're dealing with Rayanne Siegel's December 6th. Did we have a motion to, didn't we have a motion with respect to how that open meeting law was gonna proceed?
No, this was just the acknowledgement. The 12th was the acknowledgement, and that was all, and then there was a motion to adjourn.
What do you mean a motion to adjourn?
Well, you came in, there was the acknowledgement of the open meeting law
Oh.
complaint.
This was the shortest planning board meeting in the world.
Yes, that was that one. It was about 15 minutes long.
And we didn't set forth how this would be responded to. We took it to executive session.
Yeah, the action item on page 2 says the board will meet further to discuss complaint in executive session.
That's all we talked about, and that was,
Times and dates to be determined, that was it.
Where are you reading that? I'm confused.
The top of the second page,
Ah.
action items. The board will meet further to discuss the complaint.
Okay, I skipped over page 2. Okay, yes, this is what happened. Then we met on the 20
19th,
Oh, that's right, just a week later,
yes,
because we had 14 days.
yes.
And that went in, and,
they
just for-
acknowledged it.
for information, has that been distributed to everybody? The response?
The response was distributed, and I have it in today's correspondence, so it's also, you have a physical copy of the most recent, which is that it has been, the complaint has been forwarded to the Attorney General by the complainant. She has to send it to us 30 days prior to sending it to the attorney.
No. On the December 5th one, we generated a response and we sent it to the Attorney General.
Yes,
That's the end of it for us.
okay,
She has the complainant has 30 days to provide what's called additional information or,
right.
you know. And, when did we send it in? Let's see, I think like the 29th. Oh, it's here. You said it's here, so it must be here.
I have what you have here is the most, under correspondence, you have the most recent, communication from the Office of the Attorney General.
And what does that say? They say,
It's to Ms. Siegel, thank you for contacting the Attorney General's office.
That was on January 29th.
On January 15th, we received your open meeting law complaint, which was originally received by the Hubbardston Planning Board on December 6th. We will review your complaint, that's all what that one says.
Yeah, what that was a result of KP Law sending the complaint to the Attorney General for the purposes of seeking an extension of time. And they really can't begin, the Attorney General can't begin reviewing the complaint until they have our response. We put our response in, I think, we put our response in, and that response is not in this packet.
The response is not in this packet. no.
Yeah, what I'm asking is, did this board get a copy of that response?
They did, on the date that it was reviewed, and they handed them back into me because the contents of that was from,
That's right,
closed session.
that's
And
right.
so nobody actually still has that copy until everything becomes public.
All right, so is it okay if our plan is to wait until the Attorney General puts out a determination?
That's what I figured, and then we would make everything public from those meetings.
Okay, is that okay
That
with you?
sounds good.
Okay. Then, while I'm on the subject, open meeting law number 2 was submitted today to the Attorney General. I don't think we're gonna discuss it because it's not on the agenda, but I just wanted to let you know that the work got done in time. The deadline was Monday, and we
Okay.
got it out today. All right, back to December 12th, meeting minutes, short and sweet.
I'll make a motion to approve the meetings of December 12th.
I'll second that.
Vote, all in
Aye.
favor? Very good, folks.
Correspondence. Which is in our packet, correct?
Correspondence, yes, is in your packet. And Ken, I'm sorry, you have to abstain on that second vote. You weren't at the 12th, I apologize.
Not a problem.
We appreciate your efforts.
We do? Good.
Okay.
Yes, after the meeting minutes is the correspondence.
In the paperclip, right?
Yes, in the paperclip. So, last time we were in, we discussed Karen Gallant. That was the property that had 242
Mm-hmm. She wanted 2
feet of
building
frontage
lots.
and 2 houses on one lot, and she wanted to know unofficially, because she had not submitted an official A&R, whether or not the planning board felt she could move ahead with this. She's already had some advice from a surveyor that she should not, because it wouldn't be approved. And the planning board said, based even just on the frontage, that's correct. She came back with and asked, is there any chance for a variance? I bring this before the board because I was wondering how you'd like me to respond. I believe the variance is actually a purview of the ZBA, but in order to, I think, to get a variance, we have to actually reject her, which means she'd have to formally submit. I don't know if that means she has to formally
Yeah,
submit.
it's too complicated. The answer is, I think, when you read the laws, we can't do what she's asking.
We can't give her a
We
variance.
can't divide her lot up.
We have to deny, if she's gonna officially apply for an okay to do it, we have to deny it, cause it's not within the
And we
zoning
would,
bylaws.
we would argue before the ZBA that it also shouldn't be
And
divided.
with the 30-plus years I've been on the zoning board of appeals,
Well, you can't give that opinion tonight.
oh,
You're not on it tonight.
I know,
So you hold your tongue,
I will.
and,
So just respond to her that,
it is she's already under a special permit.
mhm.
And that was the give for the town, and I think the give further confuses this situation for the next owners in the town. But the informal response is, we can't subdivide.
Okay, we cannot subdivide with the A&R, and anything having to do with the variance has to go through to the ZBA.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, we don't even owe her the answer on the ZBA. Let her investigate that, because I'm not sure we're right. From a planning board's perspective, we cannot,
Correct.
honor her request.
Okay.
We cannot do what she's asking. Which, for the public's purpose, I'll speaking to the microphone, is there's a lot with 2 houses on it, as written up here. And she wants to divide it so that each house stands alone on its own lot. And it's just not a big enough lot to do that. Or frontage enough lot to do that.
Or acreage.
Any,
Alright, this
next letter?
second thing is, about Mr. Mark, Pelletier. He's interested in purchasing, 36 Main Street and putting in a small used car auto dealership in his.
Where's 36 Main Street?
It's the little Ashton Comet.
You're gonna put a car lot there?
No, just a minute.
That's what I was trying to think, I said,
Yeah,
I think that's
it's-
where it is.
We really can't deal with the wisdom of doing it. We have to deal with the legality of
Yeah,
it.
yes, and I agree with that.
I'm gonna look in 4.5. Uses permitted, by the way, this lot at 36 Main Street, by my determination, someone else can challenge it, I think it's a commercial property.
I agree with that.
It's not a town center, and it's not residential agriculture.
I believe it is town center, isn't it?
It's right outside of town
No,
center, I
it's not the
checked.
town center district.
Oh, okay.
So it's commercial.
Oh, you're,
That's right. So I look in 4.4, uses permitted by right in commercial districts, which means they don't have to come to us, they just go right to the
building. inspector.
building inspector, and he will make sure they comply with certain other rules. And I read down this, all uses in 4.1, and then a retail store, not to include new or used automobile sales. So it's specifically excluded from the by right category. So we're gonna jump down to permitted by special permit in commercial districts. And I read E, sales of new or used motor vehicles, class 1 and 2, defined MGL, chapter 140 only. So it's a constrained license for, I'm sorry, it's constrained by requiring a special permit, and it's constrained by class 1 and 2 and MGL. Now, he would get the special permit from the planning board, he would get the class 1 or 2 license from the select board, and I have to, I mean, we all have our opinions about a used car lot there, but there is a fact that this Main Street Review Committee is producing a new layout, a good word, good layout of sidewalks, bicycle paths, the road itself, driveways. It's really doing
We're moving the sign poles and all, I'm on that committee.
rehab of
Yes.
Main Street,
Yeah.
and it will affect this property, and I
Yes.
suggest that
The applicant.
the
Pelletier.
applicant, Mark Pelletier, be sure he reviews those plans and knows what he's getting into.
What are the plans called, I'm sorry?
Main Street,
The Main Street Committee and it's the Main Street Committee.
what are they, about 75% complete now, or 50%? or
We're
something?
just waiting for finalization and we're done.
So where is where is
Would
The
he-
little shop across from Mr. Mike's.
You know what Mr. Mike says, right across the
little
street,
tiny
that little
building.
cap,
Yeah.
that little tiny place.
It has a tight tank, it
Yep.
has some real constraints, and
Mm-hmm.
I always thought used car lots, you want, inventory.
You could probably put 2 out there.
You might get 2, and, if he drives to work in a car, you
That's
might
one.
only get 1.
Right.
But,
He could always live there.
it doesn't, well,
Anyway.
I'm reading that he would have to come in for a special permit. That's a lengthy process. I mean, that's cost money, and it's, community impact, and there's a whole section here on special permits.
Would you like me to write to him, though, that the board recommends he look at the Main Street Committee plans before
Yes.
moving forward?
I think he would have to have a special, well, tell him, it's 4.5E.
Right.
It's allowed by special permit. He would have to obtain a special permit from, the planning board, and recommend he speak to the select board about the class 1 or 2 license
Right.
Right, 'cause that
permits.
comes under them.
And that he review the Main Street Committee's
Plans.
plans,
With respect to that lot.
and, you might also talk to the Board of Health. He's got a tight tank there, and I don't know what that means to a public building,
Basically, all it means you have to have it pumped on a
Yeah.
regular basis. And
But I would try to display to him caution.
Mhm.
Look at all angles.
He's got a number of things he should be looking into. And also, he might consider a survey of the property, it has over the years had a road and a driveway and another driveway and the land that you look at isn't necessarily what you would have if you took control.
Mhm.
You know, where are the corners? There's a 25-foot radius cut corner on the northwest. It's quite a constrained property.
And the only other, I mean, I did send all of the things from Gardner and from Rutland and all
Yeah.
that. I didn't make copies of those here because you do have them in your inboxes and none of them seem to be things that were actionable. And the last thing is the open meeting law complaint response, just that it had been filed with the Attorney General's office, or Ms. Siegel. And that was received by my office on the 29th. Just that it's under review.
And this open meeting law complaint letter is indeed their receipt of complaint. I guess I'm not sure about the dates. We did it in time. Okay, any other correspondence, Christina?
No.
Moving right along, we find the bi-monthly report that we normally give to Ryan, and Christina has said it would facilitate getting this report done if we had a little template. So tell us about that, Christina.
The next page after your correspondence is what was submitted last time. And basically all it was a list. Over the course of the last 2 months, the planning board has been working on research and or updates to the following. And we listed some of the projects we've been doing. I'm not sure if any of you have gotten a chance to look at the board reports that go out every 2 months. All the
No.
boards are queried for this type of thing, and basically it's a place where anyone in the town can just go and get a snapshot of what all the boards are doing in every 2 months.
Is that on the main page?
It's off of the main page. I can actually, I'll write myself a note to send you guys all the link so you can see
Oh,
what it
okay,
looks like.
Thank you.
But you did send us one copy, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It's right here, right?
I'm sorry. No, I mean
Oh,
the one for the entire, because this
Oh,
was
okay.
included, this was included in,
Yes, all right,
All
I
of the
thought your
boards.
link went to the whole.
no, that,
No, okay.
that link was just to the planning board minutes.
Okay.
1 second, the link to board report.
Well, that's what you have here. You say, please read planning board minutes, isn't that,
That links to the minutes.
what are we trying to link to that's
No,
not the minutes?
I'm just trying to
document.
send all of you the
Link.
link to the web page that shows where all the board reports are. So where
Oh.
this one is, but where all the board reports are, so that you can get a concept of what all of them look like together.
I thought Ryan put that out.
He does.
Oh, I mean, he put it out to all of us.
Oh,
Didn't
I
I don't remember
didn't,
seeing it.
I don't know that he did, but either way, I'll draw your attention to it.
Maybe he did. Did we get an email from Ryan
Let me,
with it?
Yeah, we did. I got a,
Maybe that's what it is, okay.
all department, oops,
Yes, that would be it.
maybe we
all
did, yeah.
department reports and.
Yes,
Okay, never mind, I don't have to send
And
that
board
link.
report.
Yes.
Good afternoon, here's the links to the January all-department report. Now, if you're not on the magic distribution list, you might not get it, but.
no, I think we got it.
No, I got it.
All right.
So you got it.
I can't tell who got it because it's a massive distribution.
So what I was going to ask the board is basically, I mean, this is what we've done in past months, and I'd like to do it sort of as a template going forward so that as soon as it comes up, I can send it right out off my desk. I know we only meet once a month, and sometimes I only get a week and a half before this has to go out again. I mean, it does come up regularly.
Right.
I just wanted to make sure that the board had some input into what was being posted as far as what we were doing.
So for tonight, you want us to look at this template and say, what would be our new bulleted items?
Well, either what would our new bulleted items be for, cause it's going to be different cause the last one just went out and we didn't update, so.
Okay.
Might be a
So-
good segue into the affordable housing structure. And maybe, I mean, something, maybe you
Master
should,
plan?
just-
It's right there, maybe we could add to that.
no,
What-
just
What
that
are you
the,
suggesting, that in this report, we mention the affordable housing?
that the, yeah, a couple of things about it.
Yeah,
Fire
Um,
away, let's,
One would be the, seeking renewal of our grant.
Mhm.
2 would be having approved the housing production plan. And
Easy, Bill,
3 would
easy.
be, making the decision that the planning board is going to serve as the Affordable Housing Committee.
They'll be adopting
The planning board is the affordable housing. The
Right.
Affordable Housing Committee has been, what did they call it? Not disbanded, but,
Inactive,
or, no, they actually wiped it out,
yeah.
in the meeting this Monday.
Okay.
The Affordable Housing Committee has been eliminated,
Mhm.
and the planning board will function as will be the
The
affordable
new
housing.
Affordable Housing Committee, yeah.
What else, Alice?
We're
You
working on
mentioned the
the housing
plan.
production plan.
The what?
The,
The housing production plan's been approved?
I think what we said, it's been submitted.
It's been
There-
approved by the planning board. Hopefully it'll be submitted because it'll be approved by the
Right.
select board too,
How about,
right?
well, they're gonna take 2 weeks, at least.
well, I'm not sure that we can actually submit this at this time.
What are we writing? What report for what date?
Well, the one for January was asked for, and it is currently out. I'm going to ask Ryan if he can get ours in, even though it's already been published. If not, then we're waiting another 2 months for the next one to go out.
Oh, it's every 2 months.
Okay,
It's
so
every
we're
2
writing
months.
this
Okay.
for like March 15th.
Yeah,
or
that's
something.
right.
It might be
Yeah.
for March 15th. I don't mind submitting this with a couple addendums and just asking Ryan, is there any way to just put this out with what already, because they asked for it, it went out, there wasn't a time frame in which we had a meeting, essentially.
Yeah,
So it was, but as I said, it comes up every 2 months. It's something I'd like to get just in our minds so that I can say, I know it's coming up in 3 weeks. I'll put it on the agenda for that one. I just
All
wanted
right.
to make you all aware of it and
Well,
get the idea of what we'll be doing going forward.
let's try not
So
to.
these things made it into it, or didn't make it?
These
into
things made it into it 2 months ago.
Oh,
The one
2 months
for
ago.
the one for January was published without input. I don't know if he put up those from last month or if he just, some boards do not publish in the bimonthly.
What was the
It's not
actual
required.
date of our last submittal, or close date? Was this like November?
November.
November? So we're reading something that was November.
Yes,
Okay. 2018.
yes,
And we're looking to produce something
for
Perfect.
March.
for March, okay. Then let's just list the topics and we'll have to update them in March.
Right, and I figure
Affordable
what I'll
housing.
do is I can, bring it up in our next meeting and say, okay, now it's March, what do you guys wanna have, so that when Ryan comes to me, I just hand him the list.
We could just give them all the old business.
That's what I was thinking, actually, of copying and pasting
Well,
all
let's
our old
put a couple
business.
more in.
What
We
does
have the
Ryan
housing-
call his list? Bi-monthly administrators report, what is it called?
No, it's a bi-monthly board report.
Board report.
Okay,
It's all board report, that's what he calls it.
What's
the-
everybody
all
working
board
on?
report, all right.
Yes,
So we have affordable housing, housing production plan, I think regulations deserves a comment.
Mhm.
The master plan deserves a comment. I think I'd take fee schedule off. It ought to be all resolved by,
Yeah.
aside
No?
from the
Unless, of
scenic,
course, we do scenic roads tonight.
yeah, that's
Well,
true.
yeah, but scenic roads is the next bullet.
Yep.
Yep.
So I think we could eliminate
Okay,
fee schedule. And, reproduce all the other bullets. No? I mean
Sounds good to me.
theoretically,
You
we
could-
could
you
do
could
our
also
whole
add in-
business list, but,
That's too much.
yeah,
Seeking grants in connection with the town master plan.
that's a good one.
What?
Number 1 is the town master plan, but we took a few steps towards,
seeking grants.
yeah.
I think we should list the grant applications we're working on. Isn't that important to put on?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we should list them by name or just say seeking grants.
Yeah, just
we've
something like that.
discussed them
something
before.
we're
Applied
working on.
for,
Oh,
right.
totally.
Then the only other thing I would mention is please read the planning board minutes, and we say that because our minutes are the official deal. We could also, list the videos, if somebody wants to sit through
Okay.
these meetings.
Well, we have, for further details, please read the planning board minutes, which is the hyperlink, and I did make that a hyperlink, or visit
Yeah. or visit
our video archive.
Channel 192 or whatever
Right.
it is.
Our video archive, and I'll hyperlink that too.
I mean, we're up to sometimes 10 and 12 viewers.
Well, don't get too excited. One of those is me when I do the minutes.
And one of those is me when I have to look something up. No, we're doing good. All right. Does that take care of you for a while? And
Yep. I'm all set.
All right, then, street or road, that's on the agenda. That's not meant to be, all the street or road people showing up tonight. All I wanted to do was mention that
It's on the table.
we'll be dealing with it in the future. It went to the select board Monday, and I happened to be there, and
It's quite a history.
well, it's got a history, but it's also, I think we have to kind of press the reset button and deal with today's situation.
Mhm.
And the homeowners have done some work, Ryan's done some work, the select board has done something, and then now it's our turn. So we'll put, I want street or road on the next agenda.
Okay, and I've
And-
included this packet for everyone. This is what Ryan sent around
Mhm.
about what our next steps are.
Right.
Yeah.
And some of the, plans, and, it gives a lot of information. It's worth looking over.
Yeah.
It's also worth noting, I will be forwarding these on to you, but there've been some, back and forth with regards to a Sharon Begley, with
Mhm.
regards to her
Are
opinions.
they in here?
They are not, but I will be forwarding all
Will
of
that
the.
come through with us, with an email or by mail?
It will be emails.
She's the
um,
one
Okay.
that's objecting to
Yes.
the taking.
Yes,
What's her name?
and I have several letters from her already, so
Sharon
I'll be
Bagley?
sending those on to
Yes.
you.
Right. So I think this operates at two levels. I think we're gonna be working to form an opinion, but I'm going to be working very hard to understand and follow the process steps.
Mhm.
Cause there's a public hearing and there's some things we have to do. I believe the clock started at the select board meeting, and it's a 45-day clock.
Okay.
And I think that gives us enough time. We just got.
And what do you mean it starts the clock for us to
Well,
have an open hearing or?
Yeah, we have to give I'm gonna beg off. I don't know the process well enough to recite
Okay,
it, but
all
I
right.
know that you can watch the select board meeting, and when I ask the question, what happens in 45 days, it says if the planning board doesn't act, the submitted application or plan, or whatever we call it, automatically gets approved. So I think I will be working with Ryan to make sure we have the right process steps. And then do it.
Right,
And we'll all work
right.
together to form an opinion.
Yeah, the planning
I've
board just
been
has to write a
involved.
report.
I've been involved with this almost from the beginning, knowledge and my experience over the years of what's happened out there. Being on
Aren't
zoning
you
board,
also
which is-
aren't you the,
I dug the pond. No.
I thought you were gonna say you made the water, but. Analogous situations are these roads down here off 68, I think it's called Blueberry Lane, and
The dogwoods.
Dogwoods, and of course, the one that you were most involved with is where you used to live,
Pinecrest.
Pinecrest. So-
Just my knowledge of being here in town for many years, there was a lot of roads that were approved, and actually what happened was, builders came in, the town of Hubbardston really didn't have a good organization yet. They didn't have any zoning bylaws or anything, and people came in and put up houses, and that's how Pinecrest started. And
Well, that was a major development.
and they just started building everywhere, and there was no rules or regulations, and that's what initiated the original building code in Hubbardston, for the 100 feet of frontage and an acre of land, and it grew to the 2 acres and 2 acres of land, but the dogwoods got built, those houses up there, and they were not built on town-approved roads, which now, in the town of Hubbardston, you cannot do that anymore.
Well, you couldn't do it then, but he I believe the sales process misrepresented the land.
I don't believe the building department really enforced it either.
Well, that's perhaps true, but it was nevertheless
And
not
I-
allowed.
And I truly believe, just my, now I'm not gonna give an opinion, but.
Yeah.
Not on, but.
Also, what do you call it, Pinecrest,
Yes.
those roads were all accepted,
That cost the association, I believe it was $200,000 back in the early 80s, that they paid to the town of Hubbardston to accept those roads.
and now they're all paved and,
They're
They've
paved
all-
and they're taken care of by the town, which
Yeah.
is the way it should be.
and when were they paved? Cause I drove in there.
Very
the other day, it
recently.
was-
They were
They're
paved,
beautiful roads,
they redid them. When they first took them over, they oiled them.
Yeah,
And this, I believe it was 4 or 5 years ago. I did the details out there, but they came out and they paved them and they repaved them last year. I think it was, they finished them.
grading and culverts and.
No, the culverts and the grading were never done. It was never really legal, but it's there and in place and it's actually working. So,
Alright, well,
but anyways,
it's all background.
But
We're-
it's all a process, and it's unfortunate folks get caught up on all of this. It shouldn't happen.
Alright, I'm gonna try very hard to understand the process steps we have to go through, and we'll run the clocks right, and we'll do everything right procedurally. And then, of course, I would expect the applicants to come in and tell us about
There's
it.
gonna be a lot of folks here.
That's fine, that's fine.
In fact,
Now,
I
will we
don't,
try and do that at our next meeting?
I don't believe we have, if
Um,
everyone involved in this, did they fit in here for the selectmen?
No, I believe the last time Streeter Road came in, we were in here, but we also have the senior center where we can open it up and
Right.
sit many more people. I will tell you between now and the next meeting with enough advance notice.
Okay,
If I feel confident on the process steps being well understood and documented
okay,
before I kick this thing off.
yeah, cause if if
With-
we have to do a public hearing, that sort of thing, we'll have to publish it. I
Yeah,
don't
it's
know if
14
that's-
days and.
I don't know if we have to, but that's.
I think we do.
Yes,
Okay.
I believe you would too.
Okay, and
Yeah.
also there was some notification and the email was sent around to all of you from Deb Reed regarding, the possibility that one of our member needed to be recused from this conversation. Do we need to check into that?
It was mentioned in the package we got.
I just didn't know if that had been vetted yet by somebody who would know whether or not it was necessary.
Well, he's an employee of the town, so, I won't express an opinion. I'll ask
Okay.
Ryan, but
Yeah, let
Yeah,
them
that's
make
what
the
we-
decision.
that's what I was
I
wondering.
think,
It's mentioned right here.
Yes,
all right, so my mission is before the next meeting to declare whether I understand the process steps properly or not, and we can kick this off, or we hesitate and take some time to better understand it.
most of the
Can
steps
you-
are in there though, so if
It
everyone
does
wants
say,
to
it
read
says here, the Board of Selectmen may not lay out a public way until the planning board has made its report. So I'd be also interested in what is our report supposed to look like?
Well, let me give you, well,
it a
we shouldn't really be
recommendation?
discussing this.
Right, let's-
Th-
I mean,
let's-
generically,
It
what
says.
are they expecting from us,
Uh,
for any road, not just Streeter Road?
The report would certainly include a motion and vote. And
Correct.
the simplest way to express that in general is either acceptance of the plan or a non-acceptance. And that's the fundamental part. I believe the conditions could be imposed or.
And that would consist, the report
Who
might
submit
consist of
what?
those.
The plan is submitted by the applicants. They have submitted a 3-page road layout to the select board, which will flow
I
to
did see
us
that, yes.
soon. But we don't wanna discuss this too much, cause
Mhm.
it's.
Correct. We're
We
not-
didn't.
I just looked, just a process question.
Yeah, that was a process question, that
Okay.
was a general process answer.
Okay, got it.
And I will keep everybody informed of my progress on learning the way to do this. We don't wanna go through all this work and have some process step.
These, when they present it to us, this plan will be a surveyor's plan.
That's correct.
Shows
It's
the
done by
right of
Zoc.
ways and the,
You met Mr. Zoc a couple meetings ago.
okay.
He's a surveyor in Gardner,
Oh, yeah.
registered
Been here many
professional
years.
surveyor.
So the residents hired him to
Yes,
lay out
yes.
according to road
That's
standards?
his stamp was on the drawings I saw.
These
Okay.
folks have been working on this for years.
They submitted them to the
Oh, I see,
select
it's
board and I
attached,
was,
okay.
I was present and I saw them.
Our next meeting is, exactly a month from today, March 6th.
The 6th, yep.
Yeah, we're gonna go back into regular schedule, I guess, unless we get another open meeting law complaint. All right, what, else do we need to do to,
The next item is discussion of planning board budget, but Ryan was unable to make it tonight. So, he said that he will, meet with the board next month at our next meeting.
Scenic road fee discussion?
That's, was
That's
something I was,
something we need to We need to generate, I think. We don't have a fee, do we?
Right.
Well, I sent, this just got handed out, it's right in front of you.
Yep.
As I was just gathering information, I can't claim great credit for putting this together. You may remember Christina gave to us, a spreadsheet that listed all kinds of planning board fees.
Yes,
It was put
yes.
together by the Massachusetts Regional Planning Board that are,
Then you
I
had to use
couldn't
your
find the
version.
date, but it was dated, populations were dated as of 2017. So these are reasonably up to date. And I thought, well, why reinvent the wheel? They'd done it and there it was. So all I did was print it out. So these are the fees that other towns in the region are charging for
What do we charge?
modification of a scenic road.
Nothing except for the publication.
We don't have
The-
any fee,
the
right?
Newspaper and.
Publication, exactly. And then also that they have to pay for their own certified abutters list, which is $10 at the assessor's office. But that doesn't come through me.
I feel comfortable leaving that the way it is. What do you think?
Yeah,
The question is, if you're gonna pay somebody to go out and check it out, how does that person get paid? If it's the tree warden and he's paid by the town, or, I mean, generally you use the fees to generate help in assessing
But
the plans, but we don't have any, where does it say publication in a butters list? Does it even say that in our regulations, or is that just routinely done?
I'm sorry.
Where it says, does it say in the scenic road application, submit a check, that they have to pay for a butters list and
It's
advertising?
it's in the Scenic Road bylaw that they have to provide that as part of their application.
Okay,
The certified abutters list has to be provided, and
which
the
they go-
assessor's office will get that for them. And it's not something I can give them.
and then the advertising is in that too?
Yes.
And for advertising, all right, so that's in it, and so,
That would, they'd have to pay to us to have done, 'cause we'd do that.
Right.
We had a gentleman in here, maybe the last meeting. What did he pay for?
He paid for the
subdivision.
no,
lot.
he paid for the Gardner News for having his
The advertising.
the advertising.
What does that run?
It was about $140, I believe. I'm sorry, don't quote me. It was between like 130 and 160. I can't remember the exact
All right,
amount.
say $150.
Okay,
I just don't like charging people a lot of money for every little thing.
What else did he pay?
that was it.
Do we have any filing or anything do we have to do with this?
No, the only thing I have to do is I have to contact the tree warden. The tree warden has to go out and check what, but I don't know if the tree warden, he didn't mention he charges his own fee for that. You know, and it's not the planning board going out and checking it. It's the tree warden going out and checking the trees.
The town pays them.
Yeah, exactly. And then reporting back to us. And then what we do is we just bring him in here and we review his application, and that's it.
The other thing is, how does he get his driveway permit? He has to pay for that, I think.
That's-
Highway.
DPW?
That's DPW, that's not us. But DPW did flag him and say, you need a scenic road, which was great. You need a
Right.
scenic road permit before I'll go forward. In fact, he went and said, oh, I've got it done. I went before them, everything's great. Travis went, where's the signed copy of the decision? And I was like, he's like, can I have the signed copy? So I had to get a signature.
Well, that's fair.
And that was great.
I like
It
that
was
idea
good.
that he asked for.
Yeah.
The only thing, is, are we coordinated? In other words, if we approve him going in position A in the lot, you know, he goes in over here, and then Travis looks at it and says, oh my goodness, his driveway sightline is terrible, he's gonna get clipped when he comes out of there. And he says, you really should have gone down here and done it over here. How do we kinda get together on this?
Well, can't you make something on the website, so whenever we do a thing like this and issue a permit, the highway knows about it, so they're actually sending them to us anyways. When you approve it, can you just either send an email, part of the,
Well, I don't
that
wanna
process?
approve it until the traffic, the DPW gentleman says, yeah, that's a good spot for it.
well, before he sends it to us, wouldn't it be prudent for him to go and look first, or do we have to go and look?
Well, I don't know, I just don't wanna approve
I
this
know what
one,
you're saying.
and then he says, well, gee, it really should have been down here.
Right.
And I went and looked the next day after we gave that permit, cause I hadn't gone out and seen it, and it was done. He was in there with a big piece of equipment,
Right.
and,
He probably had
And
it done
I think
prior.
that's fair. I don't know if he should have gone and gotten the DPW permit first, or I don't know how it all
I don't
works,
know the
but I'm
process.
talking about the coordination of it. How do we make sure that when everybody, all these various people that approve something, they all agree that they're approving?
The same thing.
Yeah, the same thing.
Well, that kinda makes sense.
How do we do it?
I would think he would go to the driveway person first, and the driveway person say, I'll do it, but you gotta go get approval from planning.
Yeah, he
'Cause
gives
it's
like
a
a,
scenic
like a
road.
preliminary with an initial
Yeah.
on it or something, and says it's okay to go to planning. It's not okay to
Yes.
do the driveway, it's
Yeah.
okay to go to planning.
Yeah.
And, I think the DPW is the first stop,
I think so.
and he wants to be the last stop, and that's okay. But he has to say, I approve it enough so you can go to the planning board.
And then we can say we approve it enough so you can go back and.
As shown on the
Yeah,
plan,
we'll
'cause they
approve it
bring a
final
plan.
if the DPW guy likes it there.
Right.
We're just talking about rocks and trees.
Right.
Right.
So, would you call Travis and ask him, how can we work together so that we don't torture the applicant? You know, we gotta make it easy for people to do these things. And nothing's worse than one party approving this place and another party approving that place, or disagreeing, you know?
Right.
That's a torture for the applicant. So just ask him how we can work together, he might have an
Okay.
idea.
Usually there's a logical place for a driveway to go, but I could see where
But you never
if
know.
one was gonna take out a giant tree, and you can move it 10 feet, and it wouldn't take out the giant tree, so you'd
Yeah.
expect him to do that,
It's
you know?
usually like hills and valleys and turns, you gotta
Or
be able
wetlands
to
or
see.
Yeah,
And some of these people drive down these back roads, pretty good clip.
And they don't, and some folks don't really think of that because they don't live there.
And if it's a new house, they've never seen a car come out of there before.
Right.
And, oh, I didn't know that driveway was there. And, you know, we don't want somebody hurt.
well, back to the question
All
at the
right.
end here, there are 22 communities in the state, in the study, that Montechusett did. Barry wasn't one of them, Barry, I had a copy of their bylaw. But anyway, of the 22 communities, only these 8 had fees for scenic roads, so most towns do not charge in addition to the abutters list and the in the advertising.
I'd like to
But
leave
these
it
8
like that.
people, these 8 communities do, and I think maybe it's reasonable to do that.
Do you know what a driveway permit costs?
I do not.
Did I already ask you that tonight?
No.
Well, I think, if we just charge $200, we could cover the Gardner News and your cost and not be gouging the guy, or is that, or do you
I'd
wanna-
rather leave it as it is.
Okay.
Just
Well, we
pay
charge them
advertising.
exact, like I actually write it up and then send it to the Gardner News and ask how much for this. They get it back to me, and I tell the person, please give me a check for this, that's it.
And they do the abutters?
They do the abutters. They're supposed to
Alright,
go to the assessor's
so-
office and get the abutters listed, and that's about another $10.
So the motion might be, the town, will process the application, and the applicant will pay the advertising and
Abutters list.
abutters lists actual costs.
I make that motion.
It's already in there that way.
Oh, okay.
Is that what it says?
Yes,
Okay.
they have to pay
Oh,
advertising
let's leave it
costs.
as is.
Well, how about the butters list, though?
That says that they have to, as part of their
Provide it.
application, they have
They
to
gotta-
provide a certified copy. It
Okay.
doesn't say how much that certified copy is, but if they go to, where they get it is the assessors.
Then do we, leave it alone?
Well, we should
Is that
make a
the,
motion and discuss it, see if everybody's in
all right,
favor.
make a motion,
I make that motion.
that is,
So
Not-
leave it as it is.
all
If they
right,
pay for the
seconded?
guy, okay.
Anybody second
I'll
that?
second that.
You wanna just vote?
Well, we should have a
Any discussion?
discussion. I think Alice is in favor of making a fee. Do you wanna,
No,
Oh, I'll take a discussion, let's discuss.
No, I
I
don't
don't wanna
care,
leave
I
it
was
out.
doing the research on it when we were doing fees, I
Yeah.
noticed there wasn't and the other towns had it, so I raised that question, should we do it? So I looked into it and this is my
Okay.
little report, is, only 8 of the Montechusett, I guess those are the towns that were listed, out of the 22 communities do it. And the fee range is that they oppose between 55 and 300, I don't know what's going on in Shirley, but most towns don't, so if we wanna
Right.
go with the
I just
majority.
think we have a lot of fees.
I have a perspective that we've been trying for years to get people to do this. Right.
Right.
Why do we wanna burden them with a fee and disincentivize the situation? Let's get them to come in.
Right.
And keep the cost low. All right?
It's fine with
So
me.
all in favor of leaving it alone?
Aye.
Aye.
And we will, communicate with, you will communicate with the DPW.
Thank you for
company.
doing
I will,
Sure.
I'll email Travis just so that we're,
We're not traffic experts, and we
No.
don't wanna charge an engineering fee to
Yeah.
review it, so.
right, we don't wanna, have everything happen in public meeting and then say, oh, nope, you can't.
Yeah, it's a lousy idea.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, good, we'll put this paper in the back.
We also don't want him to say, okay, well, you approved me for 13 trees, but I'm not doing those 13 trees, I'm doing these 13.
Right.
Residential solar discussion, this is the one Bill asked for.
Yes.
And the reason why I asked that, when Ed was here, Ed Blanchard, requesting quite a few times that we review or look at the right for solar in all locations in town, including residential. I don't understand the process, I haven't been here before, so I don't know that. If someone wanted to put a residential solar farm next to my home, and it's a special permit, correct?
Define as a.
Oh.
Well, it says here, 20.2.4 under the Town of Hubbard zoning bylaws, it's, large-scale ground-mounted solar photoelectric installations may be cited by special permit in all zoning districts in Hubbardston. My only concern with that is part of that process.
What are we reading, Bill? Where did you find it?
Town of Hubbard zoning bylaws, page 62.
The zoning?
Yes,
Page-
page 62.
62.
Halfway down, it's 20.2.4.
That's what you were looking for before?
That's what I couldn't find. I
Yeah,
found it.
Okay, you found it.
Page 62?
Correct. Oops. Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, and your specific statement was
Well,
found?
Ed had mentioned at the meetings he'd like to see us,
No, but what paragraph, 20-something?
oh, 20.2.4, designated location is what after Ed's comments at a couple of the meetings, I've been reading through it and trying to pick out. And again, I'm new to the process, so I'm asking. I agree, I wouldn't, what's the process? It says special permit. A few of the solar farms have gone up in town, but you go to a few of the other towns around where they have solar farms, like, they're gaudy right next to people's homes. As we do this whole process, permit and special permit, what is there in this process to protect the neighbors next door? Cause right now it says anybody can do it, by right.
All right, well, I'd like to.
So my discussion would be, and my question to you folks would be,
Have you read the whole thing? Because it
I've
goes
read
on
through-
for
I've read
page
through it
after
all.
page.
and again, I'm just, it's all interpretation, I haven't sat through the process, so I'm asking you.
That's a good
Okay.
question.
As part of the special permit, is there control of what it's gonna look like, and is it gonna ruin the neighbor's property and their view of their country home? And if so, if there is none, can we modify that one section or one or other section to put a protection clause in there? I wanna make it safe for the residents of Hubbardston. I don't wanna look like some of these other towns you've been on, and it's terrible.
All right, well, you see the ones we have in town, and, for instance, the two we were talking about here tonight, 91
Yep.
Williamsville. You drive by that, it's very close to the road, and I think I heard their engineer here the other night say that there was supposed to be a 100-foot buffer zone, and they didn't provide that.
Correct.
That's the problem.
But my,
for-
now,
Well,
to add a little more to that, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Tom. Going back to what happened in the town of Hubbardston over the course of the amount of years that I've been here, and you, where homes got built where they shouldn't have gone. Is there something in this regulation here that can overly protect people, so once we're all gone off this board, if there's new people that kinda just let it go through, what can we add to this, or if is there enough protection in this, just make that so it wouldn't happen?
all right, let me just mention the 95.
That one you can't see, I know that.
You can't see it, it's way back.
Right.
And, but if you look on Google Earth, you'll see that it's way back, but
Yes, I
they
see it.
took no particular pains to shield it from view.
Mm-hmm,
It's just way far away from the road.
right.
What we have done, and if you look at the footnotes down on these pages, 6,
Mhm.
5, 18.
Okay.
The last, town meeting, we removed and I'm not gonna be able to find the paragraph, but we removed the paragraph that said they can be put anywhere by right. And we changed it to anywhere by special permit. And
And
this,
that's in here, right here.
Yeah,
It's on this.
20.24, the
No,
footnote
that
goes
section I
to.
just read
oh,
to you.
2.4.
It's
okay.
right there.
Well, that's one place. There's another place, where we remove the words by right, but maybe that's the place. So, we've removed them by right, which means they can theoretically be denied. If they were allowed to be anywhere by right, then they could be conditioned, but they couldn't be denied. So we've moved this to a deniable thing. I'm not
Excuse me?
talking about the,
I'm sorry, I apologize. I didn't understand how in the very beginning solar photovoltaic installations are by right in residential districts. It just doesn't say
Where is
large
that?
scale. On page 7 of the zoning bylaws,
Yes.
4.1p,
page 7 of who?
the zoning bylaws,
Page 7.
all the way at the beginning, under residential by right. It doesn't say large scale.
Oh,
But it
that's
says
right. Well,
solar.
there's two categories of solar. There's residential and commercial, large scale.
Residential will be on anybody's home or
This
Oh, on
is
their
like
roof?
On their roof
garage,
mounts.
yeah.
Oh,
on
okay.
their roof or even in their backyard on a
Okay.
stick, on a pole.
Okay.
They're small
Got it.
and they are by right. You can't,
Yes.
and that, I believe, is in support of a state law. There's
Right.
Correct.
three major categories of activities that are by right in a residential district. That's solar, childcare, and
Farming.
farming.
Right.
So
Okay.
that's that. But now in the large scale systems, we talk about how we have the planning board can, here it is, 20.3.10, safety and environmental standards at the top of page 65. I'm not gonna read the whole thing, but it talks about intelligent clearing of the land, don't clear more than you have to. It talks about protection of natural resources and habitat, and then part C is screening and buffering. We inject a paragraph here that talks about putting evergreen trees up that don't drop their leaves and leave it visible. Put evergreen trees up 1.5 times the height of the biggest
Mhm.
thing sticking up out in the field. And it's pretty restrictive.
Well, my other mention on there while we're talking is the one on Gardner Road. You can still see a big portion of that from the road where the poles come in. And I don't know what the.
Yeah, 262 or somewhere down there.
Right at the Gardner line there.
But they're back, boy, I bet they're back 400 feet.
I'm just saying, you can see it. It's not like other places,
Yep.
other towns where you can see it. It's just terrible.
We hope you're looking where you're driving.
Well, I look this way. But,
No, but you can see it. And, screening trees aren't very expensive. I actually looked them up on the web. You can buy some, 5-foot tall trees for $25. And,
Right,
that's not installed,
right.
but, that's off the truck.
All I'm saying is I wanted to, because I thought a lot about what Ed was saying, and I don't know the process. I've never done a special permit. And I know things change. People change and they come and go.
Well,
Are these regulations enough to protect the people if somebody other than good people that would protect us
All
here
right.
on this board?
Well, what happened here? Someone proposed a solar facility next to some residences on Old Westminster Road.
I remember the talk
Way
about
on
that.
almost to the Westminster line.
Mm-hmm.
And the residents came in, and we had quite a few present, and they said, we need some protection. And the party that was kind of leading the charge gave us an email and said, I would like to see this and this and this. And I can't remember exactly, but we have her email. And we addressed every one of those things and built them into the laws and took out that by right paragraph. And the only measure of whether we're doing a good job or not is what does the town vote? And this was voted on just last June. Our revisions were all highlighted. It wasn't like this.
Right,
You know,
right,
You could
right.
actually see what the revisions were. And those revisions were well received by the people who came in and were worried about protecting
right.
their property values or whatever they were trying to do. And then the whole town voted on it. So I would say that as recently as last June, we kind of hit the bullseye or maybe the first ring out. And these are difficult things to do.
Right, I
But
hear you.
recognize that these same people, if someone bought that land, could put a 200-foot long red barn up
Right,
on their, whatever the setbacks are.
right.
And that would be by right.
Right,
You couldn't say a thing about it.
no,
And now we're lucky to have some nice barns in town. Mr. Country Hen Guy,
mm-hmm,
he
oh,
certainly keeps his property very nice looking and, but it doesn't have to be that way.
no,
Someone could,
right,
and they'd have the right to do it.
right.
So.
All I'm saying is with that comment, as a taxpayer, it got me thinking about it, and I drive by the ones that I see in other towns that the people didn't get protected, and in my knowledge of all the folks in town that bought homes on town roads that weren't town roads, and
Yeah.
it didn't work out for them. I don't want that to happen. I wanna make sure we have a good document here that can protect the people, and it won't happen again. Or it
Well-
won't happen here, put it that way.
The last one we did is, I think if I remember correctly, it's 1,200 feet to the nearest house. The one down on Williamsville Road,
Mhm.
farther down, 141 or whatever
Right,
it was.
on the other side.
No, it's on the same side. It's down past the Ladybug Farm.
Right,
Uh,
yes,
That one is,
you can't see it.
you can't see anything.
Right.
You have to get in a helicopter.
But that was my reason to ask to put that up here. I wanted to have a discussion about that.
Well, I'm not sure, I've talked a little bit, but I'm not sure I've answered your question. Do you?
You guys feel comfortable, I don't know enough about it yet, I'm still new, so.
We did it less than a year ago, and it was a pretty extensive revision, and it was a result of a response to citizens. That's the best kind of revision. I mean, if we
Right.
just sit here and dream it up, that's one thing, but when you're directly addressing citizens' considerations or suggestions, and you do it to their satisfaction, I think that's the best.
Okay.
The 50 feet minimum side yard,
Where are you,
rear
Alice?
yard,
Where are you?
20.38,
She's on page 64.
All right.
60, yeah. And then that 50-foot buffer would have to be planted with dense evergreens at least 1.5 times the height of the solar panels, which is the next, I went through this as a result of Ed's.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I
you're in
didn't- I
2382.
Yeah, 2310C, 23.
They both say the same thing, kind
It
of.
has the screening requirements, and then 23.8 has the, or 20.38 has the setbacks. And then there's a 2-acre minimum lot size for a solar installation. So, I mean, I'm trying to, you try to visualize it,
Mhm.
and how high, I don't know how high the panels actually stand.
It depends which way they have to go to catch the sun.
Six
If it's
Or
on a
maybe-
hill or,
How
Yeah, they're-
far you think?
I've seen them as high as 8 feet.
yeah.
8 feet, so if you had an 8-foot one, you'd have to plant a row of 12-foot trees that are
I think
evergreen.
8's a little high, but I was out there. But anyway,
It
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 doesn't
depends on
matter.
the terrain, really.
Yeah, it does, it depends
Yeah.
on, definitely on.
But what Ed wanted was to have them excluded from residential districts, and that would pretty much prohibit them in most of the town. So I don't think we could do what he was suggesting, it's just,
Well, we explained
would
to Ed
undercut
that-
it.
We explained to Ed that night that the reason the state law lumps agricultural and solar together is that solar is a passive use. There's no trucks coming in and out, there's no people plowing fields, there's no active
Noise.
use. It's passive. No noise, no lights. And so they think, so like farming. In fact, when these things came out, they used to call them solar farms. And it's a passive use, and that is, in a lot of ways, a really good use. No noise, no lights, no kids in school, no traffic, no, nothing. And, they pay a significant price for us. This last one down here is paying, I think, about $70,000 just in the pilot, and then there's real estate use changes and
Taxes, yep.
61 buyouts and some other stuff. It's a pretty significant 20-year annual payment. It's, yes.
So, a couple of comments. I think, I mean, the economic factor and the benefit for the town are quite obvious. However, I don't believe that he was only looking at it from excluding it from a residential. I just want to clarify that.
Are you speaking as it?
No,
I mean, are you speaking what he said?
I'm speaking as myself from what I heard, okay? And I believe that his intention was not to exclude it necessarily from residential, but to put what is known as an overlay district. An overlay district, which a lot of cities have and towns have, basically very clearly specify where it is that you can have a solar facility. And that can include, for all intents and purposes, residential. But before you include something into that area, it has to go through that process. At this point in time, you have used.
I didn't understand that last sentence. Before it goes through what?
Before you can add a piece of property into an overlay district, that process requires the parcel of land to be included or be made inclusive into the overlay district. So it's an additional measure of protection. You still have to go through the special permits and so forth. So for all intents and purposes, you have a map that becomes an overlay district on top of the commercial, residential, and in the cases of Hubbardson, town center, as your basic three maps. And a lot of towns and cities have actually adopted it because they understand that you sometimes have these hybrid situations, but it does not, it adds an additional measure of protection whereby you can simply say, well, I can do this here because I'm in a residential zone, and it's going to go through a special permit. No, you have to go through an additional process. The process is that the property be also included into what is known as an overlay district, and that's what I understood this to be. And so
What to be?
I'm not.
What to be?
His request
Oh,
to
okay.
basically adopt an additional measure of protection for the town whereby the properties that would be allowed to foster or have a large-scale solar facility, energy generation facility, would therefore have to also be included within an overlay district.
Okay.
I was looking at it very recently. For example, the city of, or the town of Framingham, I think Framingham just became the city most recently. They have what is also known as an overlay district. And in there, they have the solar facilities. And they've done it for the very specific purpose of making sure that the areas in the town that are going to be allowing solar facilities are included in that particular, into that particular map. And then again, you still have to go through a special permit. The fact that you have a property in an overlay district does not necessarily mean that you are going to automatically be granted a permit. You still have to go through a special permit process. But it's an additional measure and step that these properties would have to be subject to. And I think in some ways it kind of addresses the worry that you're bringing up. And I think it's certainly worth the consideration of the planning board to at least look at that.
Overlay districts are very interesting, but solar facilities have specific requirements. Usually they're advantageous with southern exposures. Sometimes if the land is sloped to the south, it's even better. It has electrical interconnect requirements. It has size and shape. You know, you need so much to be a viable commercial product. And in order to develop an overlay district, and we've answered this question as a board at least 5 times, you would have to survey the town and determine which parcels are southern slopes, for instance, which parcels have advantageous or disadvantageous, which ones have the electrical infrastructure so that they can go up to the poles and carry the electricity off to the substations or whatever it takes. And that process is extremely expensive, to go through the whole town and figure out where you can put them. And it wouldn't be a zone, it would be spotted. You wouldn't end up with all of them in a zone like you would make an industrial overlay district, where the industrial infrastructure is pretty independent of the shape and orientation of the land. It's regular Euclidean zoning. It's a territory. So what the town has chosen to do in this regard is to have the applicant spend all that money. He figures out what land is south sloped, what land has an advantage, what land is proximate to a interconnection. They pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for an interconnection study. They have to ask the utility, can I put this much power into this spot, this pole? And so the town has burdened the applicant with all that cost and unburdened the town of all that cost. So that's an important consideration.
If I may respond to that, an overlay district can be started with grandfathered residential areas where they already exist, and you can also include the commercial areas. And you would still burden the applicant who wants to include their facility or their land to be included into that overlay zone by having them go through the process. You do not have
What
to ever,
process?
if the process
Special
of
permit.
becoming part of an overlay district. So what you do not have to do as a town, you do not have to, from the very beginning, survey every single acre of land that exists in the town. You start off by saying, this is what we are including, commercial, which I believe by statute we already have, and the residential areas where already facilities exist. If you now own, say for example, 20 acres of land, and those 20 acres of land potentially would be subject to you wanting to add into a solar facility, you would have to apply to have your parcel of land to be included into the overlay district.
Is the overlay district contiguous?
No, it does not have to be contiguous.
Well, then it doesn't do anything at all.
Yeah, it
We
does.
already have a uncontiguous solar selection process.
Well, the difference here is that you are including right from the very beginning all of the town of Hubbardston as a place where you can plant a facility. In order to take advantage of the overlay district, you would have to include yourself in that and then still go through the process. So it's a separate process for you to be included in the overlay district and then go through the application process in addition to this year. So it excludes everything else unless you as an applicant want to be part of this year. So it's an additional step that you have to go through, which I think is what is being proposed. And I think, quite
Being
frankly,
proposed?
well, it's being proposed by Ed.
Oh, well, he's not
Okay.
here. I haven't seen
But
him.
would
I
that
think-
mean, in practicality then, the person that wants to put the solar farm up would have to, if you're saying the town isn't excluding properties, he has to opt in. So he would, to get into that, he would have to go through a zoning amendment, right, to
Correct.
amend the zoning,
Yes.
the zoning map.
You have
to allow him to come in.
Exactly, so it's an additional set of steps that you have to go through,
Okay,
which require a higher degree of burden on the individual who wants to place their property into a solar
Because
overlay
amending-
zone.
because amending the zoning map
You got it,
requires a vote of town council.
You got
Or
it.
town
Meeting.
meeting.
exactly.
So they have to go through a town meeting as well as a special permit.
What
in
we've
order to
got-
get there.
We'd have to look into that.
What we've got now is you can think of the entire town as what do you call it?
Overlay district.
An overlay district. The whole town's an overlay district, and
No,
it's
it
the
is
same,
not.
it's the same process. A specific piece of land is targeted as a potential site for this, and then you go through the special permit process. I think if Ed Blanchard has a proposal, he needs to bring it to us as a written proposal. I think we're all talking about someone else's proposal, which
Well,
is.
we're just trying, I wanted to get the discussion going.
I'm not too worried about overlay districts.
Well, Mike,
They have their purpose, but
Can I ask you another question then?
what we have is a bylaw, and I suggest we all read it carefully,
And I
because there's
have.
a lot of constraints.
In the special permit process, if one's gonna go up during that process, and myself as your neighbor, and your other neighbor on the other side, and we're really totally against it, we come in, going through this process, is there any way to stop this? If there's people against it? And I don't know, I don't know the process, I've been through it.
The law has removed the by right paragraph or wording,
Right,
which means that it can be constrained by conditions or, in the extreme, even denied. That then becomes an appealable thing. And you go through that whole process. So when you say, can it be stopped, there will be those who don't want it stopped for the obvious benefits.
mhm.
And there may be those that want it stopped because they live next to it or something. And that whole process will have to be played out. But as a planning board, we should weigh, or I think we should weigh the greater good and where that falls. That's what we should do with all our special permits. It's a pretty extensive process. We took, what we do, we worked on Williamsville Road for 6 or 7 months.
At least 6 months.
Yeah. And the guy that didn't do it very well, Seaboard Solar, got in before these laws were all solidified. And we're gonna remediate him if it's appropriate. We'll do our, what do they call it, compliance assessment, and talk to him about what he can do to make his facility a little better looking.
Don't we have some overlay districts in our town now?
No.
We have none?
No.
I thought we did.
Usually you see overlay districts, for water protection purposes often. So they'll have an overlay district if you're
Yes.
in this watershed and you can't have underground, like oil tanks or storage facility, they'll have things that are excluded
We have
from
that.
it.
We have aquifer protection zones.
And is that so that's
So-
kind of an overlay map,
Yes.
but that's the way I'm used to thinking of overlay maps, is it is a map that, sets out for some due to natural features where you can and can't do things. It's interesting, his concept of opting in. I've just never heard it used that way.
That's not how they work, I don't think. I'll have to look
I don't
into it a
know
little
about it,
more.
so I can't say, I'm still trying
But
to.
overlays were tried down in Gardner, and what I read in the newspaper, it didn't work very well.
I think it would definitely chill solar developers from coming in, because zoning bylaw change, if that's the standard, is 2/3 of the citizenry at a town meeting, and it's very difficult to get a zoning change like that.
Well, we did that just in June. We got 2/3 of the town to agree with this regulation.
Yes, but if you
And that's quite an accomplishment.
said a certain use would only be cited, solar fields would only be cited if you could change the zoning map to make that parcel, in the same way you'd rezone a section from agriculture to business.
Right.
It's a high bar,
And also.
a 2/3 vote, you'd have so it is a different, they do have to invest a lot of money, I agree with you, in order to determine the suitability of a parcel. So if one town, you had to go to the town meeting and get your 2/3 vote of the entire town meeting in order to build it, and the other town, you had to go and get through site plan and special permit, you know, unless the site plan and special permit requirements were just prohibitive, you'd certainly choose the one where you could deal with the planning board as opposed to the town meeting.
The other
But-
comment was made tonight about commercial property, and we have, commercial property. I think it would be a shame to use commercial property for a solar field. It's just, we have limited commercial property, we need to put commercial structures and businesses there with activity and employment. The solar thing is a passive thing. It's a lot, as I said, a lot like agriculture. I think it would be wrong to use our precious commercial property for a 25-acre solar field. Just, now what we do is very interesting. When a solar field goes on to a residential agricultural property, the assessor says, oh, you have changed the use of the land underlying the solar field.
Yes,
You have changed it from residential agricultural to commercial. Now, that's not a rezoning, that's a use change. And the
It's
assessor looks
assessed.
at that and says, you will now be paying taxes on commercial land and not on residential agriculture.
over and above the pilot.
That's right. The pilot is this big, and then they put the industrial classification of land, if I'm saying these words right.
It's commercial now.
It's commercial now. If you tore the thing out of there, it would restore back to residential. But in the meantime, while it's there, they're paying extra real estate taxes. The pilot is called payment in lieu of
Of taxes.
taxes, but it's really payment in lieu of property taxes. Whereas the real estate taxes are, as we just discussed, it's industrial. And then on top of that, if this residential agricultural land was in chapter 61,
You gotta pay back.
you gotta do the buyout of 61, which of course is what's happening down on Williamsville Road. I don't know the amounts, but in the first year, this might be $100,000.
What happens is you don't pay full taxes, the
Yeah.
value of the property.
Yeah, no, I know about 61.
Just, if I may just make a point, and that is, what you have just explained is not something that would potentially not happen. You could still, as I mentioned, still put a piece of property into that category of a zone, and you can still add it. All again, I think what is being reiterated here is that you put a higher bar on some of these facilities and therefore protect the character of the town, which I think is really what is at stake here. And I think it's certainly something that ought to be considered quite seriously by the planning board.
Well, one man's, as you use the word protection, one man's protection is another man's restriction. And I remember a man standing up at the annual town meeting saying, well, if you want to pay all my property taxes, then I won't put a solar system in. But if you deny me the right, after I've paid all these taxes, I'm not a happy citizen. And he prevailed, and we got these laws drawn, and I think these laws are very good. All right, we've talked enough about that, I guess.
Anything else?
Have we, Bill? Are you
I think so.
satisfied that you?
I think so.
I really
I don't know anything
strongly-
about an overlay either, so I wanna read up on stuff, and that's what I'm trying to do. So
Alright.
when I come to the meeting, I wanna be able to talk about it.
Annual report.
Okay, this book, there's a whole bunch of them over there, the annual reports. This is the planning board's page.
Get to 90.
Yep, if, 90 and 91, and we are expected to have ours in less than 2 weeks.
Oh,
Wow.
Luckily, we've been working on it. Certain
Oh.
things
Oh.
on here are things like the gravel pit report, which is one paragraph.
Correct.
Right there.
That's where I got it from originally.
Well, there you go. How we're doing on the master plan, basically listing where our special permits stand, what A&Rs we did, the Affordable Housing Committee status, which is right here in the annual report. So it's a matter of whether we want to use this template, and I have 2 copies here, and I can grab those if you'd
This
all
is
like
online as well.
Right.
Yeah, I have a copy from
to.
that. last year.
If anybody would like to, there's also, I can grab the ones over there and hand them
I
around.
lived
No,
through
just
that.
share.
We can
That's-
share.
that's
Okay.
what you want.
There you go.
More like a-
Whether you want us to, go with this template and basically change
Would you-
what's there.
Would you
so-
draft?
I can, but
draft
it,
it in?
it will, the problem is, we don't have time before the next meeting.
Oh,
The annual report's due in 2 weeks.
well, when they say due, it is due to the town clerk, I believe?
It is down, due to Lori.
Oh, Lori, okay. Why don't you draft one, submit it? Lori doesn't immediately go to press.
Okay,
I think there's time between now and March 6th, our March 6th meeting, to receive your draft.
mm-hmm,
You give it to Lori as a placeholder and say, you know, it's subject to revision. And I've lived through this a few times. There's some people that just never get their annual report in, some parties. But I don't believe the deadline, she's gonna kill me, but I don't believe the deadline is so absolute as 2 weeks.
is the board comfortable if for some reason I put in that placeholder and it goes to press?
Is this something we can, she could send us by email?
Yeah, but we can't respond and
Can we,
deliberate and all that stuff.
can we come into the office?
Well, we could have a quick meeting if we wanted to finalize it.
Can I make a motion
Have
if
we
she
ever had a
has
quick
to?
meeting?
No.
Yeah, we have 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Can I make a motion that if
Done
this
it.
has to be verbatim in, I don't wanna see her go over the cut date. If
That's
it-
right, we shouldn't burden her with it.
Right.
But ask if it can be a placeholder, and then
Alright.
tell us it's a placeholder, or say, nope, that was it.
And we just need to have a special meeting.
Yeah, we'll pull together a quick meeting.
Is that okay?
Can you pull together all the data for the current year?
I can.
You can, and use this template, the
Now,
template's
wait
That's
a
what
minute.
that's why I brought it in.
Names.
There'll be 2 reports this year, though. There'll be a planning board report, and won't, Patty in building generate the other part of that report? The building
No,
inspector?
hers is her own building inspector report, that's not on those 2 pages,
Okay,
Oh, good.
okay, then it wasn't a combo last year then.
no.
Yeah, if she can pull it together, I mean, that's the work here, is pulling all the data together.
Right.
I can pull the data, it's just a matter of, I wanted to make sure we were comfortable with this template, this is what was done last year. If it's just fill in the blanks with that particular information, and then the other thing was like the gravel pit report, the most up-to-date information I have from our meetings is that there are no currently active gravel
Right.
pits in Hubbardston.
I believe that's accurate.
So, that would be it, and then, okay, here's our placeholder report, and if you can wait to go to print
Okay.
until after
Yeah.
the 6th,
There
or if
are
not,
no
then
gravel
we,
pits?
what?
What did you say? There were
No, active
Not
gravel
active.
pits.
I don't believe that's true.
Where are they hauling from?
I thought, hell was his name?
Whereabouts?
Had his
Oh,
permit.
His small operation when he needs it?
I believe Hackle is perfectly legal.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm
He's-
saying, but he is,
He may be active, but I think there's something about the size, 500 tons a
Okay.
year or something. What was, there's a cut.
there is a cut, you're right.
He's below that,
He is-
but he
okay.
has complied with it to the fullest
Yep.
extent. He's
Yeah.
very good.
Then we could say no large scale gravel pit
Oh,
operations.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
No, I didn't say that the first time, but I might have missed that.
So how are we gonna
All right, here's
handle
what
it?
I'd like you to do. I'd like you to draft that report, submit it to Lori.
Mhm.
When you submit it to Lori, give it to all of us.
Yep,
No response allowed.
right.
And tell us, Lori's deadline is the deadline, or we have a week or something to review it.
Right.
In that case, we can call a quick meeting.
Right.
Right.
Otherwise, it goes,
Right.
so that, you know, as you said, we're not holding her late,
Right.
Right.
making her late. Is that okay with you? You gotta do the work.
No, I have no problem with that, and as I said, just like this bi-monthly report, it's something I'm sort of getting into the swing of. By next year, I'll make sure that come December, we'll have annual report on the agenda to be like, oh, by the way, everyone, don't forget, we've got our annual report coming up, so we have a couple months to debate what's going on it, so.
I think it's a
Very
good
good.
format, yeah.
That's
All right.
awesome.
We're
Okay.
gonna, are we done?
We
I'll make
are.
a motion.
Just before you do, this agenda grew significantly because we're going through and cleaning up all our old to-do items. Do we, as a committee, wanna do this every month and rehash some of this stuff, or?
I think one thing we should do is we're going through our list, we should say,
Done.
let's cross, this one's all set.
There's precious few of them, but we
Well,
we
and then,
should do
that
it.
way there we know, and we're not gonna forget anything, I think that's really important, that way nothing gets,
But next time we come in, you wanna do this old business
I
stuff?
think we should continue all business, but I would put it behind the current,
Oh, get the current done stuff first?
yes, because you're gonna have people sitting out there and.
Yeah, all right, we can just rearrange that.
yeah, that would make sense.
Put it
And we
right
can
before
probably-
matters.
We can probably have it in our minds already. We know, like you're doing the noise, well, that's something new anyways, but, we could probably get through them a lot quicker.
Yeah,
And
I
then
think,
shrink that list down.
I
Some
think
of
that's
these we
not
haven't.
unusual for old business to remain on the, for several months.
I've
One
had
thing,
things
you
on a
work
couple of my
through
other
it.
committees, but been there for years, so,
But then you feel good, when you haven't dropped the ball.
right,
Right.
you don't forget anything that way.
Are we satisfied with the way these meetings are rolling?
So far, so good.
Any suggestions, comments, criticisms, anything you need done differently? or-
I'd like to see them shorter.
Well, we all work for that.
Can I second?
That's not gonna happen.
We're slaves of the citizens, we gotta do our job. Motion?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Good night, Mrs. Calabash, wherever you are.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.